the knight in the great world of American TV series. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26 Recommendation and Truth. Arthur immediately became depressed after being scolded by Kai. Compared with the serious and old-fashioned King Uther, Arthur was more afraid of this brother who treated him very well. In front of Kai, Arthur never had any confidence. This might be because even if King Uther was angry, he would not really do anything to Arthur. King Uther only had him as a son. Although he was usually fierce, it was actually just for show. But Kai was different. He really dared to beat him. Once Arthur made a mistake, Kai dared to kill him. King Uther himself was reluctant to punish his son, but he trusted Kai very much. He believed that Kai knew his limits. So, as a result, Arthur had respected and feared Kai since he was a child. When Arthur dared not speak anymore, Kai had the mind to pay attention to other people. During this period of time, many young knights had already arrived. Others also saw Kai's special training of Arthur recently. Seeing Arthur's progress during this period, those young knights could not help but follow suit. Kai was not stingy with them. Since they were willing to learn, what could Kai not teach? It is always good for young people to move forward, and Kai has no reason to stop them. Of course, Kai has no intention of teaching them some of the essence of martial arts. Kai is really afraid that if martial arts become the national essence of England one day, he will really become a center of the nation. He took a look and found that they were all familiar faces, except for one. Kai had never seen the child before, and it was even more impossible that he had seen him and forgotten him. Not to mention Kai's excellent memory, just the appearance and temperament of this child, it is impossible for Kai to forget him after seeing him. He stood behind Merlin, but his presence completely overshadowed Merlin's presence. You can imagine how eye-catching this child is. Who are you? A new knight? Why have I never seen you before? Seeing that the child was still a little embarrassed standing there, Kai took the initiative to go up and talk to him. Facing Kai's question, the child seemed a little nervous. He clenched his fists nervously, bowed and replied, "Lancelot. My name is Lancelot. It's an honor to meet you, Sir Kay." Kay frowned. In addition to the fact that the child's introduction was a little out of place, he also felt that the name was a little familiar. Merlin, who was standing by, saw Kay frowning and immediately stepped forward to help Lancelot add, "Lancelot is the fifth son of Lord Lysandria. He came to Camelot a month ago. He originally wanted to join the knights, but Arthur felt that he was not qualified, so he sent him to the stable to help. This is his first time meeting you, and he is a little nervous, Lord Lysandria." Kay was originally wondering about the inexplicable familiarity, but when he heard the fifth son of Lord Lysandria, he immediately turned his head and looked at Lancelot. The fifth son of Lord Lysandria. When Lancelot heard Kai's question, his face immediately became a little stiff. He looked at Kai's sharp eyes and wanted to speak, but he didn't know how to start. Merlin, who was standing by, saw this situation and immediately pushed Arthur. Arthur was standing aside doing nothing, but was completely unprepared for Merlin's sudden push. He staggered and blocked between Lancelot and Kai, just blocking Kai's gaze. It was also this that made Arthur wake up. He was dragged by Merlin to plead for Lancelot today. Arthur thought Lancelot was a good seedling before, so he arranged him in the stables, wanting to observe and train for a period of time, but Kai's return interrupted Arthur's arrangement. Arthur was almost trained to death by Kai every day, so he didn't have the heart to care about Lancelot. As a result, Lancelot worked diligently as a groom in the stable for a month. If it had gone on like this, Lancelot would have been forgotten for who knows how long. But he had a good friend. Merlin was his good friend. As the prince's close friend, Merlin had plenty of opportunities to speak for Lancelot in front of Arthur. However, Arthur was so tired every day for a while before, and it was equivalent to saying nothing for Merlin. Moreover, since Kai came back, the affairs of the Knights Templar were handed over to Kai by King Uther, and Arthur had lost his right to speak on this matter. It happened that a few days ago, Merlin and Gwen were placed under house arrest because of Edwin's incident. Arthur felt a little sorry, so he decided to let Merlin make a request, and he would definitely do it. Merlin would naturally not forget his savior, so he wanted Arthur to help recommend Lancelot to Kai. Arthur would naturally not refuse such a thing, and he himself was optimistic about Lancelot. So there was a scene in front of him. Kai, I think Lancelot is very good. Before, I made him a stable boy because he failed the assessment. As a result, he was not discouraged by this. Instead, he worked very hard. Everyone in the stable praised him. He is an honest and serious person. He is definitely qualified to be a knight of Camelot. Honest? Kai looked at his silly brother in surprise. He didn't understand how Arthur could tell that Lancelot was honest. Although Lord Lysander was not well known in Camelot, Kai happened to know him. Lord Lysander's family territory was in the border area of the Celtic countries, right next to the barbarian territory, and indeed no one paid attention to him. But when Kai left the Celtic countries, he passed by Lord Lysander's territory and helped him resist a barbarian attack. It can be said that he was very familiar with Lord Lysander. This time when he came back, he also stopped at Lord Lysander's territory on purpose, and Lord Lysander also warmly entertained him. Unless Lord Lysander has an illegitimate child outside, where did this Lancelot come from? Besides, illegitimate children are not qualified to inherit the family name. Even if they walk outside, they are not qualified to say that they are the sons of nobles. So even if Lancelot, the fifth son of Lord Lysander, is true, it is false. No one will agree with this statement. Seeing Kai looking at him a little surprised, Arthur thought Kai was surprised that he actually let a nobleman be a groom, so he could only explain, at that time, I competed with him, and he actually won, but he used dishonorable means. So I want him to experience it, but it is only a punishment, not intentional humiliation. Now his performance has exceeded my expectations, so I think he is qualified to be a knight. At this time, Merlin also interrupted, yes. Lancelot is the most chivalrous person I have ever seen. If he can't become a knight, it will definitely be a loss for Camelot. Kai looked at Arthur and then at Merlin. He roughly guessed what was going on. It was nothing more than that Merlin wanted to help Lancelot because he was a good friend of Lancelot. And Arthur. Based on Kai's understanding of Arthur, he should not be biased towards him when he knew that Lancelot was cheating. This foolish boy probably didn't know the truth of the matter at all. He just simply admired Lancelot. Really? Then I'll give him a chance. Kai didn't expose Merlin and Lancelot's lies. This was related to the lives of these two children. Once Kai exposed them now, it would undoubtedly kill them. In any country, pretending to be a noble is a capital crime. But this does not mean that Kai will tolerate such deception. Therefore, Lancelot's end was very miserable. Within a minute, he was broken a rib by Kai's wooden sword, and his right hand holding the sword was also dislocated by Kai. It seems that he is not as good as you say. Kai threw the wooden sword that was broken due to excessive force, and said this to Lancelot meaningfully. Lancelot's face, which was originally a little distorted due to severe pain, suddenly turned extremely pale. He could sense from the battle just now that Kai was hostile to him. Coupled with this meaningful sentence now, how could he not understand that Kai had discovered the truth of the matter? Everyone go to train. Kai said this and went running on his own, not caring about Merlin and Arthur who were hesitant to speak. Chapter 27 The Last Dragon. Merlin saw Kai walking away with deep disappointment on his face. He originally thought that Kai, who had always been so easy to talk to, would be a man with a keen eye for gold, but reality gave him a slap in the face. Not only did Kai not acknowledge Lancelot, he also beat Lancelot up. Lancelot did not resent Kai, he knew that Kai had known the truth, and in this case, Kai just drove him away, which was the best result. Merlin helped Lancelot up, and then encouraged him, don't be discouraged, Lancelot. We still have a chance. I can ask other people. Yes, there must be someone who can help you. Without waiting for Lancelot to speak, Merlin suddenly seemed to remember something and shouted, Morgana. Princess Morgana. She can do it. She is the most upright and kind person in the whole Camelot. She will definitely be willing to help you. More importantly, Princess Morgana is Sir Kay's fiancée. She will definitely be able to convince Sir Kay. Although I don't know why Sir Kay rejected you, Princess Morgana will definitely be able to convince him. After speaking, he was ready to turn around and find Gwen. Merlin couldn't go directly to Princess Morgana to talk about this, but Wenger could. Wenger, like him, was very optimistic about Lancelot. At the same time, Merlin also knew that there seemed to be some small situation between Wenger and Lancelot. In this case, Gwen would definitely be willing to help Lancelot. Wait, Merlin. Lancelot grabbed the excited Merlin and said with difficulty, No. No, Merlin, why? Merlin thought that Lancelot was hit, so he was ready to give up, and was ready to persuade Lancelot again. But Lancelot's words made Merlin feel like he was falling into an ice cave. Sir Kai seems to have discovered the truth. He knows that I am not a noble. Lancelot felt bad. From the beginning, Lancelot didn't want to become a knight in this way. He didn't like lying. It was Merlin who persuaded him. Of course, he was not blaming Merlin. After all, he agreed to Merlin's approach at the beginning. He just felt that he deserved this result now. He was the one who used deception first, so it was not too much for others to just beat him up. Kai didn't care about the thoughts between Lancelot and Merlin. He thought it was good for this matter to just pass. He didn't have much prejudice against Lancelot, and he didn't despise him because Lancelot was not a noble. The reason why he hated Lancelot was more because he and Merlin were using Arthur. No matter what their reasons were, their behavior just now was using. Especially Merlin, he showed Kai a very bad beginning. He made a false noble identity certificate for Lancelot without telling Arthur, and led Lancelot to Arthur, and deceived Arthur without hesitation. This behavior was worse than them joining hands to deceive themselves in Kai's opinion. Who is Arthur? He is the heir to the king. Merlin, a servant, and Lancelot, a civilian, actually deceived the monarch they wanted to be loyal to for their own interests. This behavior is unacceptable no matter how many reasons there are. Is there any essential difference between this behavior and those corrupt officials? Some people say that Merlin has no selfishness. He just simply appreciates Lancelot and wants to repay his life-saving grace. The starting point is good. This explanation is pure bullshit. The starting point is good, and mistakes can be forgiven? What kind of logic is this? Today Merlin can deceive Arthur in order to repay Lancelot's kindness. After that, if Merlin deceived Arthur for some other reason, could he be forgiven? More importantly, what was Merlin to Arthur? A tool to accomplish his goal? If Merlin had not been an important character in the legend who assisted Arthur, Kai could have driven Merlin away at that time. After this incident, Kai decided to keep a close eye on Merlin in the future. He was too young to fulfill his responsibility to assist Arthur. He was just a child. Kai just put this matter behind him. After all, after such an obvious warning, Lancelot should understand that he had been particularly gracious, and Merlin should have been warned. He thought that this matter should be stopped here. After a day of training, Kai found a reason and came to the deepest dungeon under the palace. There was a deep passage leading directly to a cave deep underground, where King Uther imprisoned the last dragon in the world. 20 years ago, King Uther was determined to eliminate everything related to magic, even dragons. Except for the dragon in the cave, it was used as a warning. It is used to tell all the wizards and sorcerers who are hostile to Camelot how powerful Camelot is. Like all myths and legends, dragons are the most powerful magical creatures. Their bodies are as hard as iron. They can use spells and spit dragon breath. They are regarded as the embodiment of power. Many nobles like to use some dragon elements in their emblems. For example, Arthur's emblem is a red dragon. From here, we can also see how powerful Camelot is. After passing through a dark and damp passage, Kai finally came to the Dragon Cave. This is a large underground space, about 200 or 300 meters above the ground. The dragon is locked here. It is bound by a magic chain. Unless someone helps it open the chain, it will be trapped here forever until death comes. The dragon was originally resting on a protruding stone platform above the cave. Kai's footsteps woke it up. With a sound of flapping wings, the dragon fell from the sky with his shackles and landed on a protruding boulder. When the dragon saw the visitor, it was very surprised. Kai? You actually returned to Camelot. Kai was not surprised. He calmly placed the torch in his hand into the slot on the wall of the passage, then turned around and greeted the dragon. Yes, long time no see, Kangora. I warned you long ago to stay away. Why were you still caught? Kai looked at this old acquaintance and said with emotion. The dragon Kangora folded its wings, lay on the boulder, and stretched its huge head towards Kai. No matter who it is, there is always something they care about. And I care about my kind. I can't just watch them being slaughtered by King Uther. So I decided to join the war. But it seems that your advice is right, but the result is better than I expected. At least I am still alive. As long as I am alive, one day, I will avenge my people. Kangora's attitude towards Kai is not good. However, they are indeed not friends. Kai knew this dragon. It was 10 years ago, not long after Kai ran away from home, that he encountered it in the forest on the border of Camelot. In Camelot, when a knight encounters a dragon, there will inevitably be a battle. Although Kai was a rookie at that time, his fighting ability was already very strong. The dragon was seriously injured because of the conspiracy with King Uther 10 years ago. And it was not well when it met Kai. The two were at most half a catty and ate a catty. Kai couldn't kill Camelot, and Camelot couldn't kill Kai. The two entangled for almost 2 months and fought dozens of times, but neither side could do anything to the other. On the contrary, after this back and forth, they developed some feelings. It's a bit exaggerated to say that they hit it off at first sight, but they do have some sympathy for each other. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28, Holy Spear. Dragons are scary, but not invincible. At least the dragons Kai knows are not so strong that people despair. Some specially made weapons can break the scales of dragons, such as weapons made of dragon bones. This logic is ridiculous. To kill a dragon, you need a weapon made of dragon bones, and to get dragon bones, you need to kill the dragon. Some poisons prepared by pharmacists can also temporarily incapacitate the dragon. In addition, using human wave tactics, killing a dragon is not a difficult thing. This is still a conventional method. There is a more convenient method, but that method should have been completely lost now, so it's better not to talk about it. It is also because of this that countless dragons fell during the war launched by King Uther against all magic and witchcraft 20 years ago. In addition, dragons, like in legends, also have the habit of accumulating wealth, which also arouses countless greed. These greeds led to the almost annihilation of the dragons in the war 20 years ago. Only a few dragons survived, but these remaining dragons were found and killed by countless greedy dragon hunters in the past 20 years. Kangara was one of these remaining dragons. 10 years ago, Kangara decided to go all out and launched a surprise attack on King Uther with his seriously injured body. He wanted to kill King Uther, the culprit, to commemorate his dead companions. But unfortunately, he met Kai. As Uther's adopted son, Kai had never treated him badly since he was a child. He was equipped with the best equipment. Among them, the sword he carried at that time was a special weapon made of a special metal that could break the scales of dragons. So in the end, although Kai failed to kill Kangara, he made Kangara even more injured. At that time, Kai and Kangara could not do anything to each other, so they tacitly let each other go. Out of respect accumulated from dozens of battles, Kai gave Kangara a piece of advice when he left, asking it to stay away and not approach Camelot. Because even if Kangara was in good condition, going to Camelot would be courting death, not to mention that it was in a very bad condition at the time, and the end would only be more tragic. But as Kangara just said, there are always some things that cannot be let go. Revenge? Kangara, although I don't want to say anything sarcastic, as long as I am here, I think you should have no chance. So stay here honestly, at least you don't need to lose your life here. Kai put his hand on the hilt of the sword at his waist and said seriously. Kangara's huge dragon head approached Kai again, and then laughed. No. Kai? Nothing can escape fate. King Uther will die, and I will definitely break free from the shackles. All this is arranged by fate. The huge laughter of the dragon was like the roar of thousands of beasts, shaking the entire cave, and from time to time some rubble fell from the top of the cave and fell into the invisible abyss below the cave. Destiny? Really? Since you're talking about destiny, can you see my destiny? Kai didn't care about Kangala's destiny at all, but asked with interest. This is another interesting place Kai found in the process of traveling around the world. There are many prophets in the world who can foresee the future. They all claim to be able to see destiny, but the interesting thing is that no matter who they are, they can't see Kai's destiny. They can't foresee any future about Kai. Kangala is the same. He stared at Kai for a long time and found that there was no trace of Kai in the destiny he saw. As long as he tried to spy on Kai's destiny, he would find that what he saw was always a mess. How could this be? Why can't I see your destiny? Kangala has always been sure that he can see the future, so he will be trapped here for a reason, waiting for the turn of destiny. At that time, he will finally break free from the shackles and end King Uther's sinful life. But now, he found that he can no longer see destiny clearly. It seems that the destiny you are talking about is just like this, Kangala. Kai raised his sword and held his head high. Camelot fell into silence and did not respond to Kai. He was indeed confused for a moment. But the confusion soon passed. No one can escape fate. He couldn't see Kai's fate, so the problem would only be his. After all, no one can control fate, but he firmly believed that fate would come, and Kai couldn't stop it, and there was no way to stop it. After thinking it through, Camelot decided not to discuss this issue with Kai. At this point, what else could he do except believe the socialite he saw? That was his only hope. Kai, you didn't come here just to talk nonsense with me, did you? Tell me, what do you want? Kai certainly didn't come here just to chat, he really had something to do. So Kai told him about Morgana's situation. I need your help, I need you to help me think of a way to hide Morgana's talent so that she won't be harassed by nightmares anymore. Camelot didn't answer Kai's request immediately after hearing his request. Instead, he laughed. Ho ha ho ha, this is so interesting. King Uther has been fighting against magic all his life, but in the end, his daughter is born with a talent for magic. This is so ironic. After laughing for a while, Camelot put his big head in front of Kai again and said sarcastically, why should I help you? I can't wait to see King Uther and his daughter kill each other. Why should I stop this? Ha ha ha, Kai, what on earth do you think that I will help you? Didn't you just despise fate? And this is exactly their fate. King Uther will definitely die at the hands of Morgana. Ho ha ho ha, seeing Camelot laughing, Kai did not show any other expression from beginning to end, but watched the dragon's wanton laughter very calmly. It was not until Camelot laughed for a long time and found that Kai was unmoved that he felt it was meaningless, and Kai spoke. You ask me, why do you think you will help me? Kai said this while pulling out the two long swords at his waist. The two swords looked ordinary. Although they were considered as divine weapons, they were not worth mentioning in the eyes of the dragon. They were not even the special weapons that could kill the dragon. Simply put, such weapons had no effect on it. Just with this, after saying this, Kai collided the two swords together in front of Camelot's puzzled eyes. A dazzling white light illuminated the dark cave. When the light converged, the two swords in Kai's hand disappeared, replaced by a knight's gun with an extremely strange shape. This gun was pure white, as if it was made of something entangled and woven. The hole was in a spiral shape, and its length was much shorter than that of an ordinary knight's gun. The shape of an ordinary knight's gun inherited the characteristics of a Western sword. It looked like an enlarged version of a Western sword, usually without a blade, and was 4 to 5 meters long. But the one in Kai's hand was only less than 1.8 meters long. Seeing this weapon he had never seen before, Camelot was a little confused. He could feel the unparalleled power from it, but he could not understand where the power came from. The pillar of light bestowed by the light elves from Alfheim, forged by the dwarves of Nidavellir, is called the Spear of the Vanguard, the spear that shines farthest, or the spear that shines at the end, the storm anchor, Rongdominiad. The setting of FGO has been changed, not so Imba, mainly because it is handsome. If you refuse me, then you will die. So you can only help me, Kai said very coldly after introducing the knight's spear in his hand. After speaking, Kai pulled out the knight's spear in his hand and aimed it at the dragon Kangora. The knight's spear emitted bursts of golden light and began to move in a spiral. Kai did not lie. If Kangora refused, he would really kill him. Because of the golden finger, Kai can bet on whether he can get his knowledge by killing Kangora. Although the probability is not high, there is still a chance, right? Chapter 29 Diamonds Are Forever. Kangora looked at Kai with wide eyes. He didn't expect that the guy who was once called the Knight of Virtue would be so unreasonable. Indeed, Kai once had such a title. But the origin of this title, how to say it, in fact, it is hype. In this era, the reputation of a knight is very important. A knight with a loud reputation will be welcomed by all walks of life, no matter where he goes. But this reputation was not hyped by Kai himself. He was a soldier in his previous life. Even the deputy captain of the police force was promoted by seniority and merit. He himself was not good at those fancy things and was a little repulsive, but King Uther loved his son. As King Uther's adopted son, with the birth of Arthur, it was impossible for Kai to inherit the throne. So in order to create a better future for his adopted son, King Uther began to package Kai in various ways a long time ago and made him a symbol of knightly virtue. Because only in this way can King Uther grant the title of knight to a young man who has just turned 18. Otherwise, King Uther will not be able to convince the public. Kai himself was not very interested in this title, so he naturally didn't care about anything. He was a typical pragmatist. Grandpa Deng once said that no matter whether it was a black cat or a white cat, a cat that caught mice was a good cat. Whether he was a soldier or a policeman, he was fighting against those vicious criminals. If you fight these cunning guys, if you stick to the rules, you really can't do anything. When necessary, Kai will also use some means. Camelot found that Kai didn't seem to be joking. He did intend to kill him. The two fell into silence. After a while, Kai took the initiative to break the silence. How about it? Have you thought about it? Are you going to stay here and wait for the illusory fate to come, or do you want me to kill you now and get relief? After saying that, he handed the holy spear Longaminate forward again, and the light on the gun became brighter and brighter, as if it would pierce Camelot in the next moment. Kai's threat worked, and Camelot had no choice. He always believed that fate would come, so he had to live until the day of fate came, even if it was humiliating, he had to live. About an hour later, Camelot put away his dragon flame, and after the dragon flame dissipated, a gorgeous diamond ring was suspended in the air with a faint light. This magic ring can suppress and hide Morgana's talent. I also covered up the magic fluctuations on the ring as you requested. As long as other people don't get this ring, they can't detect the magic fluctuations on it. Camelot was not in a good mood, perhaps because of Kai's threat, or perhaps because he was too tired. Okay, you have what you want, so get out of here. I don't want to see you again. Camelot was furious when he saw Kai carefully put away the ring. He once thought that Kai might be his only human friend. Although the only contact between them was fighting, it did not prevent him and Kai from sympathizing with each other. There was no personal hatred between the two of them. When the magnificent magic war took place 20 years ago, Kai was just a little kid of a few years old. How could he have any deep hatred with Camelot? But now, Camelot suddenly felt that his feelings were deceived. Kai was also very cool. He got what he wanted and turned around and left. He was not afraid that Camelot would deceive him. Because once he did that, only death would be waiting for him. Of course, Kai did not intend to give nothing. When Kai walked to the entrance of the passage, he stopped for a moment, turned his back to Camelot and said, "In return, I can tell you a piece of news. Haven't you always thought that dragons have become extinct in this world? I can tell you clearly that you are wrong. There are still many dragons living in the more distant world. Your race is not extinct." After saying that, Kai walked into the darkness, leaving Camelot alone in a daze. It's not that he didn't believe Kai, on the contrary, he felt that Kai was telling the truth. Because Kai had no reason to deceive him. If Kai was afraid of him, he could have killed him just now, and there was no need to deceive him. Could King Uther still blame Kai for killing a dragon? It turns out, there are compatriots outside. It's great. It's really great. I'm not alone. Not anymore. Holding the magic ring made of a dragon, Kai walked towards Morgana's room happily. Speaking of which, the princess really has a bad luck. She just suffered a wizard's curse and was in a coma for 2 days. Just after this incident, she began to suffer from nightmares again, which caused Morgana to not go out much these days. Fortunately, everyone knows that Morgana has just recovered from a serious illness and needs to rest, so no one suspects anything. Also, because Morgana has been in the room these days, most of Kai's lunch and dinner are in Morgana's room these days. Now Kai plans to go to Morgana's place to have dinner and sleep with the princess. Sleeping, in our local dialect, means sleeping, which is a bit vulgar, but when he entered the room, he found that the room was very lively today. Because Kai has been living with Morgana in reality, it is okay during the day. At night, few people come here without a clear mind, including Arthur and King Uther. Even Morgana's personal maid, the black girl Gwen, is the same. But today, not only Gwen did not leave, but even Arthur and Merlin came. Seeing Merlin, Kai roughly guessed why he came. Kai ignored the three people's hesitation to speak, and went straight to Morgana. "Dear, how are you today? Are you feeling better?" Kai came to Morgana with pity, took Morgana's hand and asked softly. This scene fed the 3 single dogs next to him a mouthful of dog food. This is the result of not having good eyesight. When other couples are alone at night, you come to disturb them. Kai is good-tempered for not being kicked out. Morgana actually had a nightmare again during her lunch break today, but in order not to worry Kai and to help the poor Lancelot, she concealed the truth. She smiled and said, "Guys, his medicine worked, and I feel much better." "Really? That's great. Who is Kai? As a police officer who has been doing criminal investigation for 7 years, Morgana's cover-up can only deceive a silly boy like Arthur, and it can't be hidden from Kai's eyes. However, he didn't mean to expose it. After saying that, Kai flipped his hand, took out a ring, and presented it to Morgana. This was a diamond ring. This kind of gemstone was not found in the Celtic countries. Kai also got some as spoils of war when he and the Sumerians fought against the invasion of the Fam people of ancient Egypt in Asia Minor. Kai also discovered these diamonds by accident, and later made a batch of jewelry with skilled craftsmen. This ring was one of them. So beautiful. What kind of gemstone is this? Women and dragons alike could not resist the temptation of gemstones, and the gemstone on the ring Kai gave was not only large, but also translucent, and more shinier than any gemstone Morgana had ever seen. This is called a diamond. It is a rare gemstone and the hardest gemstone in the world. It symbolizes protection and contract. I got it from a nation called the Fa'alm people. In their culture, this gemstone can not only protect people from any harm, but also symbolizes indestructible love. The Fa'alm are the predecessors of the ancient Egyptians. In his previous life, Kai had seen such a statement that diamonds were not valuable at first, and at most they were used in industry. Until a cunning salesman linked this gemstone with marriage and said it was a symbol of eternal love, the value of diamonds doubled. Because women buy into this, obviously, even women before the Common Era bought into this. Morgana was not interested in the fact that diamonds protect people from harm, but she was very interested in the fact that it represented the indestructibility of love, because it meant that Kai was expressing his love to her. Kai has not changed in the years since he traveled through time. At least the 3 words, "I love you," that he was always ashamed to say in his previous life, are now said very smoothly. After all, people here don't think it's shameful, but think it's natural. Kai also follows the local customs. Usually, Kai often says these 3 words to Morgana. But as a woman, who would dislike her man showing her love a little more? Chapter 30 Self-Righteousness. Kai's nonsense made Morgana happily put on the ring and swear never to take it off again. When she put on the ring, Morgana felt a sense of relief, as if some heavy pressure had been lifted. But Morgana didn't care, and attributed it to the fact that she was in a good mood when she was happy. The 2 of them were so cuddly that they stimulated the 3 single dogs next to them. Especially Arthur, he never knew that his brother had such a romantic side. He always thought that his brother was a copy of Uther. The only difference was that Kai was a little more kind. Apart from that, the 2 were really similar: stubborn, boring, domineering, and determined. Finally, Morgana remembered that there were other people in the room, and she awkwardly put away her little bird-like posture, pulled Kai to the dining table, and talked about business while eating. After helping Kai prepare dinner, Arthur, Kai, and Morgana started to eat dinner. After eating for a while, Morgana, under Arthur's repeated signals, took the lead in breaking the silent warm time. "Kai, did you drive away a child named Lancelot today? Can you tell me why?" Morgana put down her knife and fork, took a sip of wine, and then pretended to ask casually, just like chatting about family matters. Kai did not rush to answer, but slowly ate the last bite of beef short ribs. It must be said that the chefs in the palace are quite good. Kai can also cook. After all, since his parents died of illness one after another, he has lived alone most of the time, so he often cooks for himself. He is really talented in this, which makes him often self-indulgent. If he doesn't work as a policeman one day, he can live well as a chef and open a restaurant. But he can only cook Chinese food, and he is not very good at Western food. For example, this kind of beef short ribs can't taste like the chefs in the palace. In this era of extreme lack of seasonings, this chef can actually make the beef short ribs so soft and delicious, which really requires effort. After eating the beef short ribs, Kai wiped his mouth with a napkin, and then looked at Morgana with a smile. This is a habit brought by Kai from his previous life. He doesn't like to talk to people with something in his mouth, because it's impolite. He must finish the food in front of him and put away the tableware before talking. Since you ask this, I believe you must know what's going on, right? You are not Arthur. You won't be so stupid to come to me without knowing anything. In this regard, Morgana is indeed better than Arthur. Of course, in Kai's opinion, Morgana is actually limited. Of course, this does not mean that Morgana is not smart. On the contrary, Morgana is very smart, but she lacks experience. Naturally, she is not as good as Kai, an old man. To put it bluntly, King Uther protects them too well, which is a bit like a greenhouse flower. When Arthur heard Kai say this, he immediately widened his eyes. Although Kai said he was a fool since he was a child, Arthur didn't think so. He always thought he was very smart. It's just that this time he was deceived by his closest person. Thinking of this, he glared at Merlin fiercely. Morgana heard about Lancelot's situation, and she thought Lancelot was an upright and kind person who deserved a knighthood. So she was not ready to give up. This was also a common problem for greenhouse flowers. They were easy to trust others. To put it bluntly, they were too confident. They thought that if they were good to others, others would not let them down. Just like Arthur now, although he knew that Merlin had lied to him. But after Merlin explained the reason, he still chose to believe Merlin again. Because he still believed that Merlin would not have bad intentions towards him. I know that Lancelot's behavior is very inappropriate, but there is a reason. His hometown was destroyed by the northern barbarians, and all the people in his hometown died, so he wanted to become a knight. And Lancelot's own talent is enough. We can't deny him because of his background. It's unfair to him. I think we should give him a chance. At least, let him try. Kai, Morgana took Kai's hand and said with a slightly sweet voice. A bit like acting like a spoiled child. Kai gently kneaded Morgana's little hand, did not respond to her, but looked at Merlin and Wenger. Merlin, did you forge Lancelot's certificate of nobility? Merlin had known that Kai would ask this question. He had planned it well. Once Kai asked, he would stand up and admit it, and take all the responsibility on himself. But when facing Kai, his courage melted away quickly like snowflakes under the sun. Although he did not shirk responsibility, he could not be justified. He could only stand there at a loss, hesitating and unable to say a complete sentence. Kai had interrogated at least 300 people in his previous life, so he always had a temperament that could turn everyone into a criminal for questioning. And you, Miss Wenger, you also played a role in this, otherwise Morgana would not agree to persuade me so quickly even if she was ignorant. Merlin had only known Morgana for a few days, at most a few months, and they had not had much contact during the few months they had known each other. How stupid would it be to agree to Merlin's request so easily? This request violated at least 3 laws of Camelot. Wenger was also a little at a loss. Kai still didn't hold on, but turned his head to look at Arthur. It's your turn next, Your Highness. What do you want to do? Or do you know what you are doing? Of course I know. Arthur's psychological quality is much better than those two. At least he dares to defend himself. I think Lancelot is a talent. It's a pity to drive him away like this. I think we can give him a chance. Anyway, there are so many nobles who don't have any talent. It's a shame for Camelot to let them become knights. So why don't we try Lancelot? Origin can't represent everything. Originally, Arthur was ready to be scolded or even beaten. But unexpectedly, Kai didn't get angry, but nodded in appreciation. God, it's great that you think so. As a young man born and raised under the red flag, Kai naturally sneered at those class distinctions. People's ability is always the most important, and origin is secondary. Of course, Kai would not be so naive as to completely deny the advantages brought by birth. After all, some things are very realistic. Arthur was simply ecstatic. Kai was like many parents in traditional families. They rarely praised their children. So Arthur was rarely praised by Kai. So you agree? That's great. Arthur was interrupted by Kai before he finished speaking. What did I agree with? Didn't you say, your idea is not wrong, but what does this have to do with that Lancelot? Kai's attitude became cold. I just praised you for being smart, why are you stupid now? Arthur felt that Kai's change of face was faster than turning a page of a book, and he didn't know what to say. Do you understand what I just said? That Lancelot wants a chance? Sure, there's nothing wrong with that, he can say it truthfully. Yes, a knight must be of noble birth. But no one has ever said that he can't become a noble, right? Although the class system in the Celtic countries is very rigid, it is not really that there is no opportunity for advancement, it's just more difficult. Indeed, that's difficult, but if he says it directly, and then with your help, as long as he is capable enough, is it difficult for him to make some achievements? Who'll stop him? It is indeed difficult for commoners to be promoted to nobles, but if Lancelot is really capable and Arthur supports him, the difficulty can be reduced sharply. Although it is still difficult, the chance is already very high compared to others. King Uther is indeed very rigid, but no matter how rigid he is, he will not be so unkind to his own son without violating the law, right? Besides, Is Lancelot really that good? Will Kay really stand idly by? How is that possible? Once a certain amount of merit is accumulated, coupled with the lobbying of Arthur and Kay, it is very likely that Lancelot will become a lord. King Uther is also a person who loves talents. But what did Lancelot do? He used deception. He chose the shortcut of getting something for nothing. He was fooling the laws of Camelot. And you? You are the heir of Camelot, a beneficiary of the law, and the natural defender of the law, but you actually went to plead for a blatant fraudster and undermine the foundation of your rule? You are undermining your father's reputation. Did you know that? What's in your head? Stone. And you, Merlin? You forged your noble identity certificate, then deceived your prince, and then deceived your monarch. Now that you have been discovered, you don't know how to repent, but continue to instigate Arthur to go further and further on the wrong path? I thought you were just young and ignorant, so I didn't intend to pursue it before, but now it seems that I need to change my mind. You are no longer suitable to stay by Arthur's side. Guards. As he said that, Kay slammed the table and stood up, calling the guards loudly. At this time Merlin also came to his senses. He shouted, I just think it's unfair, Lancelot. Kay was very disappointed at this time. He originally thought that the legendary Merlin was a wise man, but now it seems that he is just a conceited little brat. Fair? You think it's unfair? Then what about your deception? Is that fair? You want Lancelot to get a chance, fine, just say it openly. As long as he is as good as you say, he has a chance. But how did you do it? You forged the documents and deceived Arthur. What do you think of Arthur? An object to be used. Is this fair to Arthur? Is this fair to others who also want to compete for the title of knight? Moreover, do you think your deception can be concealed? Not to mention me, the Grand Maester will know the details of this family. What are you going to do then? Let the Grand Maester not perform his duties? Stop the Grand Maester from telling the king the truth? Well, even if you can convince the Grand Maester, what about Lord Lysambia? Lord Lysambia's family is not extinct. What will you do if they hear about it? Are you going to let others recognize this non-existent fifth son? You came to me with a reason that is totally untenable and shouted about unfairness? Then tell me, where's your fairness? What's more terrible is that you actually used Arthur again and again. After the matter was exposed, you did not repent and once again bewitched Arthur to work for your so-called fairness, and on the premise of destroying his interests. How can I believe you? You completely put your ideas above Arthur. You have never even thought about what impact it will have on Arthur. If everything goes as you wish, and it is finally exposed, what will happen to Arthur? In this way, what good influence can you bring to Arthur? At this time, the guards also knocked on the door and came in. Throw him into the dungeon. No one is allowed to let him out without my order. After saying that, Kay asked the guards to take the distraught Merlin away. Arthur could only worry on the side. He wanted to stop it, but he knew Kay's personality, which was exactly the same as King Uther. If you stop it at this time, it will only make things worse. In this regard, Kay is tougher than King Uther. King Uther will still consider that Arthur is his son and will be soft-hearted, but Kay will not. Maybe, Kay will really draw his sword and chop off Merlin's head. Okay, Arthur, tell me now, where is that Lancelot? Arthur was also disturbed by Kay's lecture at this time. He left. Merlin and I tried to keep him, but he felt that he was not qualified to stay, so he left. We originally wanted to convince you and then go after him, humph. He still has some shame, otherwise what is waiting for him is my sword. Kay was in a better mood at this time. Just now, Kay really planned to kill Lancelot. Because Kay finally remembered where he had heard this name. This Lancelot was the one who gave King Arthur the forgiveness hat. When I read the legend of Merlin, I always felt annoyed that Merlin was always courting death. Although he always had good intentions, he always messed things up. Therefore, this handling here is entirely out of the author's own resentment. Chapter 31 The Unreliable Prophet. Kay thought about killing Lancelot. This is not an exaggeration. Kay really wanted to kill him. Because he remembered that Lancelot was Arthur's destined disaster. It was Lancelot who put the forgiveness hat on Arthur. He fell in love with Arthur's queen, which led to the breakup of the Knights of the Round Table, and finally King Arthur died in battle. This is the legend in Kay's mind. Although he never understood why Lancelot only cuckolded Arthur, it caused the breakup of the Knights of the Round Table and even Arthur's death in the end. Kay sometimes blamed himself. In his previous life, why didn't he learn more about the legend of King Arthur? Now he only knows a little and doesn't understand many things. For example, until now, Kai doesn't know who the other protagonist of the Forgiveness Hat incident is. From childhood to this age, Kai has never found that he has ever cared about any girl. This feeling is really bad. He can't even be a prophet. This is not surprising. If you ask people on the street, how many of them who are over 37 years old know the details of the Arthurian legend? In fact, if I hadn't read the legend of Merlin, I would only know the Sword in the Stone, Merlin, King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, and a few other terms. I don't know the rest, so in that moment, Kai decided to end it all and wanted to kill Lancelot. As long as he killed him, everything would be over. Kai had already planned to do it before going to the Dragon Cave. Kai was ready to find Lancelot. But halfway through the journey, Kai hesitated again. Kai is not afraid of killing. Killing is not rare in this era. On the contrary, killing is very common. What Kai really avoids is killing a good person. Kai has always received more than 10 years of military and police education. When dealing with evil people, Kai has nothing to say. He is not soft-hearted. But for an innocent person, Kai can't do it. Whether in his previous life or this life, he has never learned to go against his conscience. Lancelot may really be the culprit of Arthur's fall in the future, but he has done nothing now. And this is reality, not a legend. Everything is still unknown, not to mention that he came here. Everything has the possibility of changing. So after some thought, Kay gave up. Anyway, Lancelot committed fraud and impersonation of a noble, and he has lost his future in Camelot, so he can only go far away. This will also cut off the possibility of him harming Arthur in the future. Unexpectedly, when Kay just returned home, a group of people in his family actually pleaded for Lancelot, even including Arthur, the idiot. At that moment, Kay was really angry. Fortunately, Kay calmed down quickly. Arthur could not see the future at all, so naturally he could not know what Lancelot would bring to him in the future. But Arthur is still not smart. As Kay said, as the heir to the country, he actually did something completely opposite to his position. How stupid it is. As for Merlin, Kai was too lazy to say anything. He could only say that the innate magic talent made this child too arrogant, so arrogant that he thought everything was right. The law became a symbol of unfairness in front of him. He placed himself above the law and above the existing rules of the entire society. He didn't care about the consequences of his actions. This made Kai confirm again that the legend of King Arthur was not the same as reality. The big difference was another story. After Merlin's outburst, Kai didn't make it difficult for Wenger. She was just a maid who knew nothing and didn't have the courage to break the law. It was probably Merlin's instigation. So even if he said a few words, he sent her and Arthur back to rest. I'm sorry, Kai, I didn't know it would be like this. After letting Wenger leave, Morgana became very embarrassed. She was not the kind of girl who liked to make trouble, so she could naturally hear that Kai was not unwilling to give Lancelot a chance, but that they did it wrong from the beginning. It was this kind of mistake that made Lancelot lose the real opportunity. Just like what Kai said, if everything was laid out in the open, everything would be easy to say. As long as Lancelot had the ability, he would naturally have a chance. But now, they messed everything up themselves. It's okay, it's not your fault, it's just that Arthur, that idiot. He was fooled by others and even forgot his position. He is far from being a real king. Kai naturally couldn't blame a kind girl, especially when this girl was his fiancée. Although Morgana knew that Kai was changing the subject, she was still very happy. Women are like this. In many cases, they know that the other party is talking nonsense, but they just like others to lie to them. Kai and Morgana began to be affectionate here, while on the other side, because Merlin was thrown into the dungeon, Gaius was not having a good time. When Arthur ran over and told Gaius everything, Gaius was stunned. He didn't expect Merlin to be so bold. After Kai discovered the truth, he not only didn't give up, but also dragged Arthur and Morgana to speak for Lancelot again. Now Kai was finally angered. Gaius knew Kai. Although he looked gentle and polite, and was a different kind of person from King Uther, in fact, their cores were similar and they were very principled. Once the issue of principle was touched, they would never show mercy. Gaius was now extremely self-blaming. He blamed himself for not being able to stop Merlin in time. Gaius persuaded Merlin that the laws of Camelot had never been broken. But Merlin didn't take it seriously at all, and said very strongly that if Gaius wanted to report it, he could report it. He felt that he owed Lancelot a life, so he had to repay him. At that time, Gaius didn't know what he was thinking, and he acquiesced. Thinking about it now, Gaius really regretted it. Now things have become more serious. Kai might not be too angry about Merlin's mistakes at the beginning. After all, he did let Lancelot and Merlin go at that time. But Merlin's actions afterwards completely angered Kai. Kai now thinks that Merlin is using Arthur. And from the facts, Merlin did so. Merlin wanted to repay his gratitude, so he casually trampled on the laws of Camelot. After being discovered, he was unwilling to accept it and even dragged Arthur into it. This touched Kai's bottom line. Gaius now doesn't know how to plead for Merlin. Gaius, do you have a solution? Arthur couldn't let go of Merlin, his friend. Although Kai said that, Arthur still didn't believe that Merlin was using him. I don't know. Gaius was also a little helpless. It's true that he and Kai have a very close relationship. But it is precisely because of the closeness that he understands how stubborn Kai is. Once he decides something, he rarely changes it. Think about when Kai wanted to travel around the world, King Uther opposed it so fiercely. But Kai still insisted on his own way and left. From this, we can see what his character is like. But no matter what, Gaius is still ready to try. Gaius is a weirdo in the eyes of outsiders, and he rarely gets close to people. But Merlin treats him differently. Whether it is his relationship with Merlin's mother or his father-son relationship with Merlin, he doesn't want to see Merlin really get into an accident. I will talk to Kai tomorrow. I think he will give Merlin another chance for my sake. Gaius himself said this without much confidence. But now, it can only be like this. At the same time, Gaius remembered something more important. By the way, Arthur, did Kai report Merlin's arrest to the king? If King Uther knew about this, then there would be no solution to this matter. It would be more realistic for them to consider finding a grave for Merlin. No. I have already told the guards not to report it to Uther. Kai didn't ask anyone to report it to Uther. Arthur did this perfectly, not as crude as before. That's good, there is still room for maneuver, Gaius said thankfully. From this perspective, Kai at least has no intention of beheading Merlin. Otherwise, Merlin will surely die before he can plead for mercy tomorrow. Yesterday, I saw a comment from a book friend, asking why the other protagonist of the cuckold incident, Gwen, fucking bitch, was not punished. Regarding this issue, there is an explanation in the text. Kai didn't know the name of Arthur's queen in the legend. Before I read Merlin, I didn't know the name of Arthur's wife. As for fucking bitch. In fact, no matter who it is, if they travel to the world of Merlin, they will not believe that a very ordinary-looking black civilian girl, the word ordinary here is a polite way of saying it, will become Arthur's queen. So until now, Kai didn't know that Gwen would become Arthur's queen, let alone believe that such an ordinary-looking black girl would develop any emotional entanglement with handsome men like Arthur and Lancelot. Chapter 32 Lessons. The next morning, Kai did not go to training immediately, but came to Uther, intending to have breakfast with Uther. King Uther would certainly not refuse this. But this news scared Arthur and Gaius enough. So not long after Kai came to King Uther, Arthur hurriedly pulled Morgana to him. This surprised King Uther very much. He didn't understand what happened today. Why did one or two of them come to him for breakfast? Although King Uther asked himself that he had given all his love to every child, he had to admit that he was not the kind of amiable father who was close to his children. In fact, except for Kai, the other two did not like to eat with him very much. King Uther was also helpless. He was a middle-aged man and really couldn't say soft words to his children. But unexpectedly, today his children were all rushing to have breakfast with him. This made King Uther have an illusion that he thought he had remembered his birthday wrongly. Otherwise, why did they all come to him for breakfast without any prior agreement? But no matter what, King Uther was still very happy. Which father doesn't like his children to be close to him? Kai was not surprised by Arthur's arrival. This guy really valued Merlin. Kai smiled at Arthur meaningfully. Then he looked at Morgana with a similar look. Morgana blushed and was a little embarrassed. I don't know if it was because of the madness last night or because Kai saw through her intentions. Seeing Morgana's happy face, King Uther was even happier. He asked with concern, "Dear, how do you feel? Are you still uncomfortable?" Morgana gave King Uther a sweet smile. "No, I'm fine. I feel more relaxed than ever." "That's good." Then King Uther didn't know what to say. King Uther was similar to Kai's father in his previous life. They were both the kind of people who didn't like to show their emotions on their faces. This may be a common problem of all traditional old men. They prefer to be introverted and everything is unspoken. Perhaps this is also the reason why King Uther had a tense relationship with his children for a time. These foreigners are not very used to this kind of introversion. Arthur didn't care what King Uther said. His attention was always on Kai. He was afraid that Kai would report Merlin's affairs to Uther, and then everything would be over. But he didn't expect that Kai didn't say anything from beginning to end during the whole breakfast. Kai didn't say anything until the end of breakfast, but he didn't leave either, which made Arthur still very nervous. It wasn't until Gaius and some court officials arrived that he was slightly relieved. Gaius had a good relationship with Kai and King Uther, and with him around, Arthur could relax a little. King Uther was a little surprised why Arthur and Kai didn't go to training. They had been doing this for the past month. But Kai said that training should be combined with work and rest. After a month of high-intensity training, it is also necessary to take a proper rest. So he planned to take a day off today. It happened that he had nothing to do, so he took Arthur to learn how to handle government affairs. King Uther was more satisfied with this answer. He needed Arthur to be not only an excellent knight, but also a qualified king. It was necessary to learn to handle government affairs. So he was very satisfied with Kai's arrangement. In this way, neither of them would be delayed. While King Uther was taking Arthur to learn how to handle government affairs, Gaius found Kai. Gaius did not speak, but just looked at Kai quietly. He could see that Kai had no intention of executing Merlin, otherwise, he would not have not told King Uther about this matter in the morning. As for the consideration of Arthur and him, it was not that Gaius was not confident, but that Kai had to make up his mind. Not to mention them, even King Uther could not change his mind. Besides, to put it bluntly, even if Kai really executed Merlin, could Arthur and him really blame Kai? No. Because Kai was right. Merlin committed a capital crime. After almost 3 minutes, Kai smiled and asked, "What's wrong, old friend? Do you have something to say to me?" Yes, I should thank you, Kai. You saved the child," Gaius said. Kai glanced at Gaius and asked curiously, "You think so highly of that child?" Gaius did not shy away from Kai and told him the truth. "He reminds me of me when I was young, just as confident and blind. I always thought I had the truth. I always wanted to change anything I didn't like." Kai nodded, and he understood why Gaius was so anxious to plead with Merlin. "In that case, you have to be more responsible for teaching him well, Gaius. I know he is special, but because of this, he needs to be taught even more. He now puts himself above everyone else. If he continues to develop like this, Gaius, I like this child, so I don't want to kill him with my own hands one day." Seeing Gaius's face change drastically, he wanted to explain something, but Kai raised his hand to stop Gaius from talking. "Don't deny it, Gaius. I've been out there for 10 years and have seen countless strange things. Some of them, even if I tell you, you still find them unbelievable. So don't worry that I will look at Merlin differently. But to be honest, old friend, Merlin has talent, so he needs more teaching. I believe you have seen many cases of good intentions leading to bad results, just like this. Don't let him be self-righteous anymore." After saying that, Kai turned and left, leaving Gaius there with a gloomy face. He didn't expect that the things he tried so hard to cover up would be discovered so easily by Kai. But fortunately, the situation was not too bad. In this way, the morning passed peacefully. When it was almost lunchtime, King Uther's affairs were almost dealt with. At this time, Kai suddenly said to King Uther, "By the way, Your Majesty, I have something to report to you." Arthur on the side was startled. The thing he feared most happened. Arthur hurriedly looked at Gaius, hoping that Gaius could help. But Gaius shook his head at him and said not to speak. King Uther was a little puzzled. If Kai had something to say, he should have told him long ago. Why did he wait until now? Kai saw King Uther's doubts, so he explained, "Because it is a small matter, I don't intend to take up your more precious time." King Uther's doubts were not only dispelled, but also inexplicably felt comfortable. What Kai meant was that their family's breakfast time and the time to handle government affairs were more meaningful and precious time. Kai didn't want to disturb him at those times. What a good talker. "Then tell me, I happen to be free now, I want to punish a servant," Kai said. "Who? Why?" King Uther asked curiously. Kai's temper was famously good. He rarely punished servants, which made Uther feel that Kai was a little too lenient many times. "Arthur's squire, Merlin. Yesterday, Arthur came to Morgana's place to have dinner with me, and he offended me. Although he didn't mean it, I don't want anyone to do something unpleasant when I'm with Morgana, so I need to remind everyone. King Uther frowned immediately. Of course, he didn't think there was anything wrong with Kai's behavior. Kai was a family member, and Merlin was a servant. Even if he was Arthur's squire, he couldn't be compared with Kai. What made him unhappy was that Arthur was so ignorant that he couldn't even manage his own servants. How do you want to punish him? A lash. Not too light, not too heavy, just right. Arthur breathed a sigh of relief at this time. It was just a lash, and no one would die. It was much better than being beheaded. So Arthur didn't say anything. Gaius also breathed a sigh of relief. This was just right. It not only saved Merlin's life, but also gave him a profound lesson. Then do as you say. King Uther felt that it was a bit light, but since Kai had already said so, he wouldn't refute Kai's face for this. A long time ago, when I saw the legend of Merlin on CCTV, I wondered why such a woman was chosen to play Yan Gunyuang. At that time, I was still young and thought that foreigners' aesthetics were too different from mine. As a result, after growing up and watching many foreign beautiful actresses, I found that although foreigners' aesthetics were different from mine, they were not as big as I imagined. Yan Gunyuang really didn't look good. Was it to discredit Jing Tian? There is a big background, but there is a rumor on the internet that the father of this actress is a director in the series or something, but it can definitely not be considered a difference in aesthetics. Chapter 33 Whipping. Merlin is a celebrity in Camelot. The reason is very simple. He has been locked in the square by King Uther for 8 times and people threw rotten fruits and vegetables at him. Arthur also contributed 2 more times, when Arthur and Merlin first met. After this, basically everyone in Camelot knew about Merlin. However, everyone regarded him as a fool or a clown. Of course, they had no ill intentions, because Merlin had a strong psychological quality. Every time he was thrown rotten fruits and vegetables, he could still smile at life and even tease those who threw fruits at him as his fans. This made people in the city like this silly and optimistic young man very much. People always talked about his stupid things with relish. Even King Uther had heard about it. For this reason, King Uther also sighed that fortunately Merlin would not be more stupid, otherwise, Camelot would usher in famine because all the food was thrown at him. So some people with good intentions gave him a nickname called Little Prince of the Square for this reason. This morning, when Merlin was escorted to the square by the palace guards again, some idle people had already started preparing rotten fruits and vegetables, waiting for the daily reserved program with great interest. But this time, they were wrong. After Merlin was locked in the shackles on the square, 2 guards took off Merlin's shirt, and another burly soldier walked behind Merlin with a whip. It was a whipping. Everyone looked at Merlin, who seemed unusually silent, in astonishment. They couldn't figure out how this silly and cheerful young man could commit a crime that required a whipping. In their eyes, Merlin was just a little stupid and would never commit a crime. Snap! Before people could adjust their mood, the whip of the executioner hit Merlin's back with a whistling sound. Merlin's thin back instantly had a blood mark. Merlin's originally silent expression was instantly broken. He was like a fish thrown onto the shore, his eyes and mouth were wide open, but for a while he couldn't make any sound. Then, before Merlin could scream, the soldiers whipped him. After 20 lashes, Merlin was hanging on the shackles, unconscious. There was no good flesh on his back, and the blood even soaked Merlin's pants. As a punishment, whipping is not easy to bear, and there are people who have been beaten to death. This is also because Merlin has a strong background, and the soldiers who executed him knew to let him go, otherwise, with Merlin's small physique, he might really be beaten to death. As the execution was completed, 2 soldiers immediately went up and carried Merlin back to the palace. They were afraid that Merlin could not bear it and went directly, so they quickly sent him to Gaius. It was evening, and with Gaius's full rescue, Merlin's condition finally stabilized. For the next period of time, Merlin could only sleep on his stomach. At this time, Merlin was awake. Although his back was burning, Merlin didn't care. He cared more about another thing. Gaius, am I really wrong? Merlin was imprisoned, thinking about Kai's words. Now he is no longer as sure as before. Merlin always thought that the decree was wrong. It prevented outstanding people like Lancelot from contributing to the country. If this is not wrong, what is it? But after Kai said that, Merlin realized how self-righteous he was. Just as Kai said, since he believed in Lancelot's ability, he could introduce Lancelot directly to Arthur and let Arthur help Lancelot. After all, Although the decree is harsh, there are legitimate ways to solve this problem. But now that he has done this, even the original legitimate way has been lost. Merlin. I don't want to say those useless words. I can only say, remember this lesson: good intentions do not necessarily lead to the right thing. Gaius had a lot of preaching, but seeing that Merlin was so self-blaming, he couldn't say those words. Merlin was silent for a long time, and then asked with difficulty, does Lancelot really have no chance at all? That was not his intention, it was my fault. Gaius was silent for a while. Gaius had contact with Lancelot before, and Lancelot had been living here, so Gaius knew that Lancelot was a good boy. Just as Merlin said, he deserved such a chance. Unfortunately, Arthur found Kay again before and asked the same question. Do you know how Kay answered? Merlin raised his head and looked at Gaius hopefully. Although the probability was small, Merlin still hoped that a miracle would happen. Kay said so. Lancelot violated the first rule of the Knight's Code. He humiliated himself and us. This code is based on trust, which is the bond that unites the knights. How can you trust someone who has deceived you? How do you convince other knights to believe in a liar? After speaking, Gaius picked up a bottle of potion and brought it to Merlin's mouth. Drink it, or you won't want to sleep today. The pain will drive you crazy. I don't know if it's because Merlin's injury has subsided, but Camelot's life has calmed down in the next 2 months. Peace and good luck. It was also during these 2 months that Arthur lived a hard life that he had never experienced before. Kai was very angry when he saw that Arthur couldn't even wear clothes after leaving Merlin. Kai had never had a servant since he was a child. King Uther did find him a lot, but Kai just didn't want one. He was used to doing his own things. So Kai ordered all servants not to serve him, and let Arthur dress himself, eat, and even brush his horse by himself. If he didn't think that others couldn't accept a prince being driven out of the palace, he would even plan to let Arthur live in the knight's residence. In short, in these 2 months, Arthur really became an ordinary knight. Not only did he not receive any preferential treatment, but he was constantly targeted by Kai. If it weren't for knowing the relationship between Kai and the royal family, many people would have some bad guesses. However, this kind of life is about to end. Because Kai is going home. It is true that Camelot is Kai's home, but Kai is not an orphan, he has his own biological parents. So every year he will go back to his parents to stay for a month, which can be regarded as filial piety. Kai's departure also symbolizes that Arthur's hard days have come to an end. And Merlin has finally recovered and can fulfill his duties as a servant. Arthur feels relieved when he thinks about it. Of course, Arthur himself admitted that the previous days were hard, but they were indeed effective. Arthur has made great progress these days, and this progress is not only in martial arts, but also in his temper. He has also calmed down a lot, and he speaks and acts like an adult, not at all like before, impetuous. King Uther was very satisfied with this. If it were not for the natural right for Kai to go home, he would not want to let Kai go so that he could continue to train Arthur. Chapter 34, Fate is Fickle. With Kai's departure, Arthur was completely free. Originally, King Uther was going to continue to train Arthur according to Kai's method, but the problem was that he was too busy to watch Arthur all the time. In addition, Arthur had a sister, Morgana, who loved him and was helping the evil on the side, constantly trying to make her brother relax a little. Even if King Uther found out, Morgana would still argue and use Kai's words work and rest to block King Uther's mouth. King Uther was also helpless, so he simply didn't care about it in the end. He thought it was not bad to let Arthur relax first, and wait for Kai to come back, and then let Kai take care of it. Since Kai came back, King Uther's sense of responsibility has almost plummeted, and he has completely handed over the matter of teaching Arthur to Kai. So Arthur's happy life has finally arrived. Although he still maintains training every day, he has plenty of time to do his own things. More importantly, he finally doesn't have to clean up his room and wash his clothes by himself. Merlin did all this for him. Merlin was a little unhappy. His injury had healed long ago. Gaius's craftsmanship was not to be underestimated, so he was actually resting for at least 1 month in the past 2 months. During this month, he also put away his previous arrogance and began to study the magic book given to him by Gaius seriously. He also became conscientious in treating his job as an apprentice pharmacist. The whole person looked much more stable. How does the saying go? Learning makes me happy. Merlin really lived up to this saying. The days of studying hard made him feel a lot more fulfilled. But now such a beautiful day has to end early, and he has to serve Arthur as a servant again. Merlin had learned his fate from the dragon Kangor a long time ago. He wanted to protect Arthur from ascending the throne and thus creating a unified Celtic kingdom. But he is not a bodyguard now, he is just a nanny and a scapegoat. No, in just 7 or 8 days, he was thrown into the square by King Uther and baptized with rotten fruit 3 times because he helped Arthur find a way to fool King Uther. Although I missed interacting with my fans for 2 months, this feeling is not good. Some fans are too fanatical and like to throw hard fruits at him, which is really painful. But it was okay today. Arthur suddenly had something to do and didn't let Merlin follow him, giving Merlin a chance to rest for a day and soothe his injured heart. Merlin was free and wanted to talk to Gwen. Because of the matter of Wizard Edwin and Lancelot, the relationship between the two has improved a lot. Usually, they would chat with each other and complain about the stupid things Arthur did. This kind of complaining can make them happy physically and mentally. But on his way to find Gwen, Merlin suddenly heard a child's wailing, as if he was injured. But Merlin looked around and didn't find any children. Merlin didn't know whether he was overthinking or someone was playing a prank. After searching for a while without success, Merlin was ready to give up. But just as he was about to leave, he heard the child's cry again in his ears. This time it was clearer. There is absolutely no mistake. There is really a child who is injured. Merlin immediately followed the direction of the voice, only to find that the voice was not on the palace, but in the inner city outside the palace. This was not a cry at all, but a thought. A child with the same talent as him was calling. Merlin immediately perked up and began to use his thoughts to search for the child. Soon Merlin's thoughts were captured by the child who was calling for help. Help me, the child was calling for help. Merlin immediately ran in the direction of the thought, and when he left the palace, he looked around and finally found the child. The child was very fair and beautiful, and people would feel pity at a glance. Save me, the boy's voice began to become weak. Seeing that his palms holding his arms were already soaked with blood, Merlin didn't know that he was injured. Save me, please. Then a group of soldiers appeared in Merlin's sight. They were searching for something. Merlin looked at the boy in doubt. The boy immediately called for help in an anxious voice. Help me, they are catching me. Why are they catching you? Merlin also asked in his heart. But the boy did not say the reason, but kept asking for help. But Merlin vaguely guessed that it was probably related to magic. Looking at this poor boy, Merlin had no time to think about it. He walked a few steps to the boy's side. While the guards were not paying attention, he asked the child to run to a small door in the palace according to his instructions. That was where servants entered and exited. Seeing the child obediently running according to his instructions, Merlin immediately ran behind the door to meet him. At this time, a soldier also saw the back of the child going into the small door. Hearing the guard's call, Merlin immediately closed the door, picked up the child and ran to the depths of the palace in a panic. On the way, Merlin suddenly had an idea and ran to Morgana's room with the child in his arms. When Merlin pushed open Morgana's room, Morgana was chatting with Wenger. Seeing Merlin rushing in, Morgana said a little displeased, Merlin, did you forget how to knock on the door? Merlin had no time to apologize, so he could only hold the child and say as fast as he could, the guards are chasing him, I don't know what to do. At this time, the guards knocked on the door. My lady refers to lady of noble status, also refers to princess. Morgana looked at the poor child, hesitated for a moment and decided to protect the child. This was both out of trust in Merlin and because she couldn't sit idly by and watch a child. After arranging the child and Merlin to hide in her dressing room, Morgana sent the soldiers away with a few words. The soldiers naturally couldn't search Morgana's room. They were more to remind Morgana that someone had broken into the palace. So just like that, the child named Mordred was saved by Merlin and Morgana. But they didn't know how far-reaching and huge the impact of their actions would be on Arthur and the kingdom he said he would create in the future. Morgana and Merlin thought very simply at this time, this is just a child, and just a child. While Merlin and Morgana were trying every means to save the child, Arthur was scolded by King Uther. Uther was always like this. Even if he loved his children, he would only treat them with a harsh attitude. This is also the reason why he was not close to Arthur and Morgana. In fact, Arthur had done a good job. Just now, he independently killed a druid man who used magic to resist in the city. This druid man was reported when he entered Camelot to purchase with a child rescued by Merlin. Before, it was Arthur who led the team to hunt down the two men, But because of Arthur's momentary weakness, the child escaped. But when the man was going to resist with magic, Arthur stood up. The man's spells were very skilled, but he still died under Arthur's sword. But Uther was not reconciled. What he wanted was to cut the grass and root it out. Any wizard and magician who entered Camelot must die. Arthur wanted to say that it was just a child, but King Uther was not going to condone it. Arthur also didn't know that this child would end his life in the future. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Love at First Sight. Next, Morgana, Gwen, Merlin, Arthur and King Uther had a series of thrilling and tangled stories around this child. Morgana had a fierce dispute with King Uther again because she wanted to save the child, which made the father-daughter relationship, which had been easing, tense again. With the help of Merlin, Morgana originally planned to secretly send the child out of the city through the secret passage, but she failed because she was discovered. King Uther was very angry and thought that Morgana was betraying him. Morgana stubbornly believed that King Uther was too cruel. The two parted unhappily and Morgana was also confined. The father-daughter relationship, which had gradually warmed up due to Kay's mediation, became extremely tense again. Next was Merlin. He was also very active in planning to save the child at the beginning, but when he learned from the dragon that the child would be his destined enemy, the murderer who killed King Arthur, and the demon who destroyed the empire, Merlin also fell into entanglement. The dragon and Merlin met a few days after Merlin entered Camelot. Before Kay came back, the two had many interactions, but Kay didn't know about it. He wanted to follow the dragon's advice and watch the child beheaded by King Uther, but the kindness in his heart made him unable to sit idly by. In the end, Merlin decided to follow his heart and help the child. Finally, it was Arthur. Arthur was naturally very resistant to hunting a child at first, but his duty made it impossible for him to disobey King Uther's order. This made him very entangled, and then he saw his sister and King Uther quarreling, which made him even more tormented. How could he be willing to kill an innocent child? His entanglement was soon noticed by Morgana, so Morgana used both soft and hard tactics, and Arthur also became an accomplice, because Morgana was closely watched by King Uther. So Arthur took the initiative to take over the task of saving the little boy. In the end, with the help of Merlin, Arthur sent the druid boy back to the druids in the depths of the forest, and when they parted, Arthur learned the name of the child. Mordred. When King Uther found out that the druid boy had been rescued, he was furious. He couldn't believe that such a vicious incident as a prison break had happened in the heavily guarded city of Camelot, and the prisoner who was kidnapped was the prisoner who was to be executed the next day. King Uther suspected that it was Morgana, but Morgana was with him at the time. King Uther knew that Morgana was related to this incident, but he couldn't do anything to Morgana. In addition to the superficial relationship, she was King Uther's biological daughter, not to mention that she was Kai's fiancée. King Uther had no choice but to express his anger and warning. This incident just passed, but it had a significant impact on everyone. Merlin has been absent-minded for more than 10 days. He often falls into inexplicable thinking about whether he did the right thing before. After all, he let Arthur's enemy go, and according to the dragon's prophecy, this child will kill Arthur. Although Merlin told Gaius that he didn't regret it, things are not that simple. No one will be indifferent to such things. Even though Merlin comforted himself many times in his heart that he just saved a child. But the prophecy of the dragon kept provoking his nerves. Only Arthur didn't care about it. Even if King Uther scolded Arthur and sent him to catch the child everywhere, Arthur forgot about it in an instant. King Uther asked him to catch people, but he was slacking off. Anyway, no one dared to report him. Look, today King Uther sent him to the forest outside the city to continue looking for the trace of the child. As soon as he got into the forest, he threw King Uther's order behind his mind and started a happy hunting activity. Merlin. What are you doing? Hurry up and put away this rabbit. Morgana has been in a bad mood recently. I decided to get her some rabbit meat. Arthur put away his crossbow and complained about the work efficiency of his servants. Merlin pouted and reluctantly tied the rabbit with an arrow in the abdomen to the rope. Arthur, I think you should give the rabbit alive to Morgana. No girl likes bloody things. They like living rabbits. Girls and elder are like this, Merlin sometimes doesn't know how to describe Arthur's roughness. If a girl is in a bad mood, what does it mean to give her a few dead rabbits? Elder is Merlin's hometown, alive? That's too troublesome. Besides, rabbit meat is delicious. When I am in a bad mood, I like to eat something delicious. Morgana must be the same. Faced with Arthur's answer, Merlin couldn't complain. Merlin swears that no girl would like Arthur like this. No wonder Arthur, who is almost 20 years old, is still a virgin. This guy doesn't understand girls' thoughts at all. Anyway, Merlin doesn't plan to discuss girls' hobbies with this idiot. In fact, Merlin is still quite envious of Arthur. This guy has no worries at all. He can forget everything lightly, as if it never happened. For example, in the case of the child, all the people involved were very nervous, even Morgana, but Arthur could act as if nothing had happened, eating and sleeping as he should, without feeling anything at all. Being carefree is also a talent. Merlin. What's wrong with you? We are hunting, we need to be quick, hidden, and quick thinking. Why do you always look silly? It turned out that when Merlin was distracted, he accidentally bumped into Arthur, causing Arthur's prey to escape. What? Merlin was still a little confused about the situation. Forget it. Arthur didn't want to say more to the silly servant. Anyway, he would only ask more whys, but never get to the point. Just as the two began their daily bickering, a woman's scream suddenly came from the front. Arthur and Merlin didn't think much and immediately dropped what they were holding and drew their swords and rushed to the direction where the sound came from. When the two arrived, they found that a group of bandits were attacking a father and daughter. Seeing this situation, neither Arthur, who was full of chivalry, nor Merlin, who was kind-hearted, could sit idly by, so the two rushed up. There is nothing much to say about the battle. There were 4 thugs in total. They might be a threat to ordinary people, but to Arthur? The battle ended quickly. Merlin was just playing a supporting role from beginning to end. He just gestured with his sword for a few times, and then all the thugs were killed by Arthur. When Arthur pulled the long sword out of the chest of the last thug, he found that Merlin was still standing in the distance gesturing with his sword. Arthur spread his hands and looked at Merlin with a question mark on his face. Merlin? What are you doing? What? Go help the old man, he's still on the ground. Arthur pointed to the old man who was kicked to the ground by the thugs and said with despair. Oh, Merlin woke up from a dream. Arthur saw Merlin clumsily helping the old man, shook his head, turned his head helplessly and helped the woman who fell beside the tree. The moment he saw the woman, Arthur suddenly felt a feeling he had never had before. But Arthur immediately determined what this feeling was. It was a heart-thumping feeling. He felt that he was in love. Chapter 36 Neil. Arthur is in love. Merlin is a bit like dreaming. The straight man Arthur actually fell in love with a woman at first sight. More importantly, for this girl, Arthur did not hesitate to evade his responsibilities. He gave up his duties, he avoided patrols, and avoided banquets, just to have a tryst with a girl. This is not Arthur. However, Merlin thinks it is not bad. No one cannot fall in love. Merlin thinks it is normal for Arthur to do this, at least more normal than before. Of course, what Merlin should consider more at this moment is how to get through the hurdle in front of him. Well, now let's talk about Merlin's situation. Didn't I say before that Arthur has been busy dating recently and completely forgot his responsibilities? So the question is, why didn't King Uther break Arthur's legs? The answer is the same as usual. Arthur has a blame artifact Merlin. Merlin has used his clumsy performances in the past 3 days to take the responsibility of Arthur missing various activities on himself. So Merlin also set a record, being dragged to the square to throw fruit for 3 consecutive days. On the other side, Morgana is different. She is very panicked now. Because she recognized the woman Arthur brought back. She recognized her the first time she saw her. She was the woman who often appeared in Morgana's dream. The woman who drowned Arthur in the lake. There were no words to describe Morgana's shock at the time. This woman actually appeared in front of her alive. At first Morgana was very scared, afraid that something was wrong with her. But the fear soon passed. She had always thought that her dream was an omen, and now the omen had come true, and the woman really came, which meant, her dream was very likely to come true. Arthur would be drowned. Now Morgana was even more worried about Arthur. Morgana tried her best to warn Arthur to stay away from that woman, but Arthur didn't care about Morgana's various obscure warnings at all, and he didn't even hear Morgana's deep meaning. He thought that this was another sister teasing him. As Arthur often said, Morgana often treated him as a fool. I won't be fooled. In short, Morgana was almost dying of anxiety. Morgana even ended the Cold War between herself and King Uther and went to King Uther in person, hoping that he could intervene in Arthur's blind love. But King Uther didn't think so. King Uther certainly wouldn't allow his son to marry a down-and-out noblewoman. The two people rescued by Arthur claimed to be nobles from the north. Because their homes were invaded by barbarians, they planned to go south to seek refuge with their relatives in Carrion, so they were down-and-out nobles. Arthur was the Prince of Camelot and the heir to the most powerful kingdom among all the countries. His marriage was not just his own business, but an activity of great political significance. Marrying another powerful country was Arthur's destiny. But falling in love was not within King Uther's consideration. In King Uther's opinion, it was not bad for Arthur to have a relationship. As long as he didn't get married, King Uther wouldn't care. Besides, Arthur was already 20 years old, but he was still a virgin. Do you think King Uther wouldn't worry? Now is the perfect time. Anyway, King Uther was confident that he would be able to break up the two people in the end. As for what Arthur would do before that, King Uther really didn't care. Anyway, Arthur would not suffer any loss. Typical rogue logic, but this was exactly what King Uther thought. Morgana was very anxious. She tried to warn the woman to put away all the thoughts that she shouldn't have. But the effect was not good. The woman didn't take Morgana seriously at all, and even ridiculed Morgana in return, thinking that she was preventing them from being together out of jealousy. This made Morgana feel embarrassed and extremely annoyed. She was a woman, so she could naturally see what a woman was thinking. When she warned the woman named Sophia, there was only contempt and frivolity in the woman's eyes, and there was no love for Arthur at all. She was using Arthur, Morgana was sure, and she would definitely kill Arthur, Morgana was also sure. After all, the dream was there. At this moment, Morgana even wanted to publish her dream, hoping to alert King Uther and Arthur, the two male chauvinists. Unfortunately, Morgana knew that this was not possible. She could not care about herself, but she could not care about Kai. Once she was involved with magic, what would Kai do? She did not want Kai to be trapped in the choice between her and Uther. So she was particularly helpless now, and she could only confide in Gaius. Gaius was also at a loss. Although he knew that Morgana was a prophet, Gaius had observed this for many years, and Morgana's dream prophecies were very accurate. But even so, Gaius could not target a father and daughter based on Morgana's words alone. How should he explain to King Uther and others? More importantly, how to explain to Arthur? Gaius thought about it for a long time, and suddenly thought of something. He asked, "How many days has Kai been away?" Morgana thought about it and replied, "It's been the 28th day." Then she reacted. "You mean, let Kai handle this matter?" "That's right. Kai will be back in the next 2 days. Once he comes back, everything will be easy," Gaius said affirmatively. Morgana was also in high spirits at this time. Yes, others don't believe her, but Kai will definitely believe her. Thinking of this, Morgana immediately sent someone to find Kai. Calculating the time, Kai should be on his way back. All she had to do was to get Kai back as soon as possible. Just as Morgana was expecting Kai to come back as soon as possible to break the deadlock, the father and daughter on the other side were also impatient. Back so soon? Sophia, the father of the father and daughter, called himself Alfred, an elegant old man. Although he looked almost 60 years old, his movements were neat and powerful, not like a 60-year-old man at all. "Someone is hindering us." Sophia was no longer as innocent and pure as she was in front of Arthur, but was very cold and arrogant. "What happened? I almost died. At that moment, I felt like I was going to die like a mortal." It turned out that during today's date, they happened to meet several soldiers who were searching for druids. One of the soldiers didn't see clearly and thought that the two unfortunate couples who were having a tryst were druids, so he shot an arrow and almost hit Sophia. "He saved me. This is Arthur." Arthur pushed Sophia aside, so that Sophia was not hit by the arrow. Unfortunately, Sophia was not grateful at all. "That weak and incompetent man saved me. I can't stand this situation anymore." Alfred comforted him softly. "You don't have to endure it anymore. When you get his heart, the door of Avalon will open to us again, and we will regain our true bodies." "I need a little time," Sophia nodded and said. "Very good, I will go to the elders today. It's best to sacrifice this mortal prince tomorrow night." That night, Arthur ran out to date Sophia as usual, and Merlin helped Arthur as usual. But when Merlin returned to Gaius and learned part of the truth, he was not well. He actually sent Arthur into a trap. In order to make up for his mistake, Merlin followed Ælfric under the command of Gaius. As a result, he learned a more terrifying fact. Ælfric and his daughter are not human beings at all. They are elves from the land of immortal youth, far away from the utopia of the world, the paradise in the other world, the land of elves, Avalon. They were expelled from Avalon because of committing a serious crime and had to live as human beings until death. If they want to return to Avalon, they must use the soul of a mortal prince as a sacrifice. And Arthur is their target. This is a serious problem. They must stop this from happening. Unfortunately, the development of things is much faster than they expected. The next morning, Arthur brought Sophia and her daughter to meet King Uther. "I came here to discuss important matters with you at the request of the people, Father." Arthur faced King Uther with a very solemn attitude in the morning. King Uther was a little confused. Arthur continued, "I think you should have noticed that Miss Sophia Timur and I have been very close these 2 days. King Uther certainly noticed it, otherwise do you really think Merlin can fool King Uther about this kind of thing? I hope we won't get so close." This sentence was a joke. King Uther didn't mind what happened between Arthur and Sophia, but he would never allow Arthur to do anything more outrageous. For example, he would not allow Arthur to make any more extreme moves. For example, he would tell everyone about their relationship in court. Arthur hesitated for a while, but still said firmly, "We are in love. I sincerely ask you to agree to our marriage." King Uther was stunned for a moment, and suddenly laughed. Ha 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 ha. King Uther still hoped to attribute this matter to a joke. "This is the funniest joke I have heard this morning." Well, how should I respond to your childish joke, my son?" "No, it's not a child's joke. I sincerely hope to marry her." Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. King Uther was completely overwhelmed. He thought Arthur was just playing around, but he actually played it for real. Morgana on the side was even more shocked. Morgana could still accept falling in love, but marriage? They had only known each other for 3 days. When did Arthur, this idiot, become so romantic? King Uther naturally couldn't agree, but unfortunately Arthur had no idea what he was doing at this time. So the two of them got stubborn. Arthur declared that it was none of his business whether King Uther agreed or not. After saying that, he grabbed Sophia and prepared to leave, regardless of King Uther's anger. King Uther immediately ordered the arrest of Sophia and her daughter, and Arthur also fought back. "You can't stop me. I will marry her if I want to." But at this moment, a majestic voice suddenly came from outside the door. Oh? Really? It was Kai. Kai walked in from the main entrance of the hall in a dusty manner. "Our Arthur has grown up and knows how to openly oppose the king's order in the king's hall." Kai saluted King Uther first, and then took off his cloak with a smile under Morgana's concerned eyes. Originally, the maid was going to take Kai's cloak, but Morgana took it one step ahead. "Don't worry, I'm here." Kai smiled and hugged Morgana. Then he turned his head to look at Arthur, whose face was changing constantly, and Kai said expressionlessly, "Kneel, kneel." Arthur's face was a little struggling, but when Kai's eyes became dangerous, Arthur still knelt on one knee. Past experiences told him that it was best to be obedient at this time. Otherwise, the end would be very miserable. Even Sophia's charm could not suppress this conditioned reflex. Seeing Arthur kneeling, Kai's face looked much better. "Very good, this shows that you are not completely confused." Then he said to King Uther, "Let the guards hold him down. I'm afraid he will be a little excited later." Although King Uther absolutely trusted Kai, he was still a little confused at this moment. He had never seen Kai treat Arthur like this. Arthur will definitely become king in the future. Kai has always paid attention to this. Even if he punishes, he will not humiliate Arthur like this. But now, however, out of trust all the time, King Uther still did it. At this time, Kai turned to Sophia and her daughter. Kneel. Chapter 37 Exposed. Sophia's face immediately changed. She couldn't imagine that one day she would be asked to kneel down by a mortal. This was a great shame. Ælfric beside her was much more experienced. He immediately pulled Sophia's sleeve and asked her to do it. At the same time, he was secretly complaining in his heart. Before choosing Arthur as the target, Ælfric would naturally investigate. Although he didn't know Arthur's interpersonal relationships very well, he knew a little about them in general. He knew that Kay was not a simple character. But he never thought that Arthur would be so afraid of the legendary First Knight Kay. Originally, In Elfric's mind, even if this Sir Kay had a close relationship with the royal family, it would be impossible to really stop a real prince. But now it seems that he really underestimated the influence of this Sir Kay on Arthur and King Uther. Kay, what are you going to do? At Elfric's signal, Sophia knelt down with extreme anger and humiliation, but she would not give in. The moment she knelt down, she met Arthur's eyes. Under Sophia's magic control, Arthur became excited again and even questioned Kai. Kai looked at Arthur unexpectedly, and then looked at Sophia thoughtfully. Under the suppression of the guards, Arthur certainly couldn't make any waves. My brother has really grown up. Arthur has never spoken to me like this since he was a child. This is the first time, and it's all because of you, lady. Kai ignored the noisy Arthur, but took off his gloves, walked in front of Sophia, gently raised Sophia's chin with his index finger, and said arrogantly, "Well, at least Arthur's aesthetic sense is not a problem. She is indeed a beauty. Kai's behavior is extremely frivolous no matter where it is placed." Sophia naturally understands that Kai is insulting her. It's still a rose with thorns, great eyes. Looking at Sophia's eyes that almost want to tear him apart, Kai seems even more frivolous. "Tell me, lady, how did you make my silly brother fall in love with you in such a short time? You know, I couldn't believe it when I received this news. Almost everyone here knows that my brother is an emotional idiot who doesn't understand romance. But you can make him fall in love with you in just a few days. It's a miracle." After asking, Kai rudely put down the woman's face and turned to look at King Uther. "Your Majesty, have you seen such a situation in your rich life experience? Especially this situation happened to Arthur." King Uther didn't care much before, thinking that Arthur was old enough, but now that Kai asked him this, he suddenly felt that there seemed to be something wrong with this matter. King Uther was still very clear about what kind of person Arthur was. King Uther believed that Arthur would fall in love. But it was unlikely that Arthur would fall in love at first sight and get married. King Uther was sometimes careless, but sometimes he was overly sensitive, such as anything that might be related to magic. "You mean?" Kai did not respond to King Uther's words directly, but secretly made a tactical gesture to Leon, who was standing on the side. Leon was stunned. He thought he had seen it wrong. But until Kai made a tactical gesture again, he realized that Kai was not joking. Although he was a little doubtful whether Kai's judgment was correct, out of trust in Kai, Leon nodded quietly, and then told the knight behind him. Then the knight behind him turned and left. "Your cane is very beautiful. Can you show it to me?" Kai walked to Elfric and said to the old man who had been silent all the time. Elfric was a little hesitant, but seeing Kai's firm eyes, he could only grit his teeth and hand the cane in his hand to Kai. Kai casually took the cane and spun it twice, and then horizontally in front of him. "Very good white oak heart, a rare material. Is it Gamora crystal on it? This kind of crystal is very rare. It is said that this kind of crystal can only be born in places where elves appear." Kai casually commented on this cane as long as his body. But Alfred could not stop sweating, because what Kai said was all right. But before Alfred could think of how to explain, Kai spoke again. "Well, there are words engraved on it. Let me think what kind of words it is. Oh, yes, it is Ogam. Hold life and death in your hands in the library of Camelot. There are all kinds of books, many of which can be traced back to the beginning of the Celtic kingdom established in this land, so there are a lot of mystical materials there." Kai was very interested in these things when he was a child, so he often soaked in the library and was considered a polymath. Just when Kai finished reading the inscription on the cane, Alfric stood up at lightning speed and chanted a spell to Kai. A violent flash suddenly appeared, and then Kai was knocked away. This incident immediately caused chaos among the people in the hall. Now they didn't understand that the two fathers and daughters were evil wizards. "Guards!" King Uther shouted. Elfric also stood beside Sophia at this time and chanted this spell again. A Bos Ocus Bith, an ancient language invented in the legend of Merlin. It is regarded as a spell here. With Elfric's spell, all the soldiers who had just surrounded were thrown away. "Sophia! Now, take Arthur away." Sophia's reaction was also very fast. She was ready before Elfric spoke. "Arthur!" A voice like the wailing of a banshee exploded in the hall. Arthur, who was originally restrained, suddenly seemed to have taken medicine and threw the two soldiers who had been holding him away. "Sophia, I'm coming." Arthur's eyes flashed red, and the whole person became stupid, completely losing his former demeanor. But even so, his movements were not slow, and he almost rushed to Sophia's side. But at this moment, Kai, who had been bounced away before, came to Arthur's side without knowing when, and grabbed Arthur's shoulder. It is said that a child's first love will be extremely tragic, but I didn't expect that your first love would be so big. I will come to comfort your injured boyish heart later, and you should stay here honestly for now. After saying that, Kai smashed Arthur's head with a metal kettle. Ling. The kettle was deformed by the smash, and Arthur was naturally not good either, and he fainted. Kai casually threw away the kettle in his hand and looked at Sophia and her father, whose faces changed drastically. He shrugged helplessly. I'm sorry, I don't want to do this to your little boyfriend, but love is always blind, and someone must keep him awake, right? After saying that, Kai put away his joking attitude and said in an extremely cold voice, then it's your turn next, bastards. As soon as the voice fell, Kai's double sword slashed at the two fathers and daughters like two lightning bolts. Sophia and her father originally planned to use magic to repel Kai again, but unfortunately, Kai didn't hold back at all at this time. Their spellcasting speed simply couldn't keep up with Kai's attack speed. They could only use simple spells to resist now, but these spells couldn't shake Kai at all. The best way for knights to deal with wizards is to defeat them with speed. The more powerful the spells, the longer it takes to prepare. Now Sophia and her daughter can only use some less powerful spells to fight Kai, such as fireballs and mind control. But these things don't necessarily have any good effect on Kai, let alone ordinary knights. This is also one of the shortcomings of wizards. If wizards didn't have this or that shortcoming, King Uther would never have won the battle against magic. Go. Alfred understood that things had become very clear by now, and the purpose had completely failed. Now it was more important to save their lives. Go? You can't go anywhere. Kai naturally couldn't let go of these two difficult prey. Yes, prey. It was the first time that Kai encountered a target with such abundant soul power in the Celtic countries, even more than many guys who regarded themselves as gods. Kai has killed many gods, although most of them are some inexplicable small earth gods with some special abilities, but they are not much stronger than ordinary people. Originally, after returning to the Celtic kingdoms, Kai thought that he could only kill bandits or hooligans to gain experience. The energy bar of Kai's golden finger, the total energy required is unchanged, but the difficulty of obtaining energy will increase as his own strength increases. In simple terms, it is to suppress experience. Unexpectedly, the Celtic kingdoms are still quite good. Chapter 38 The Need for Communication. Faced with Kai's relentless pursuit, Alfred had no choice but to fight to the death. He pushed Sophia away and told her to run away, while he stopped Kai. Don't try to hurt her. Alfred fiercely thrust the staff in his hand into the ground, and a huge shock wave immediately erupted, blocking Kai tightly and preventing him from moving forward. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Kai did not dare to use too much power at all, and could only rely on his physical strength to resist the continuous shock waves, and then gritted his teeth and approached Alfred step by step. In order to stop Kai, Alfred had already used his greatest strength, and had no spare energy to escape, and he did not want to escape. It was he who killed his compatriots in Avalon, causing them to be expelled from Avalon and cursed, trapped in the bodies of mortals to grow old, get sick and die. His daughter was implicated, so he originally planned to use Arthur as a sacrifice to let Sophia return to Avalon, and he would continue to accept the curse until he died. Now the goal of sacrificing Arthur has been completely shattered. He can't let Sophia suffer any harm. As long as Sophia escapes, then she still has hope, even if it's not Arthur. Other princes can do it. Father, Sophia cried with tears in her eyes. Of course she knew what her father was planning. But he asked her to abandon her father like this? How could he do that? Go. I can't hold on any longer, hurry. Although Kai was stopped, he still approached Elfric step by step. Obviously, Elfric couldn't hold on any longer. Sophia bit her lip, and finally turned around and fled to the gate. She couldn't let her father down. I said, she can't go anywhere, Kai said coldly. As soon as Kai finished speaking, Sophia's screams rang out at the gate. Elfric immediately turned his head to look over, only to find that Sophia had fled back again, covering her arm. Outside the gate, a large number of knights and soldiers gathered, holding crossbows and halberds, and surrounded them step by step. Sophia, seeing his daughter injured, Alfred's instinct as a father inevitably made him lose consciousness. But just this little loss of consciousness put Alfred in an irreparable situation. Swish! Two cold lights crossed Alfred's neck, and Alfred's expression froze. Then a stream of hot blood spurted out, and Alfred's head fell to the ground. No, Sophia witnessed her father's end with her own eyes. This blow made her completely lose the ability to think. At this time, Kai also walked towards Sophia step by step. The riots soon subsided, and the two evil wizards died. They died very simply and were beheaded by Kai. When they died, their bodies turned into ashes and ceased to exist. But despite this, King Uther was still very angry. In just 1 month, Camelot suffered 2 attacks from evil wizards. Coupled with Morgana's previous experience, King Uther was very disappointed with the security of Camelot City. He didn't understand. In his own royal city, they couldn't even guarantee the safety of the royal family. Is this still his Camelot? So many people were scolded by King Uther today. Arthur was also rescued by Gaius soon after, but if there was a choice, Arthur would rather continue to faint. It was too embarrassing. Being bewitched by a witch, and that woman was his first love. But this time King Uther didn't get angry with Arthur. King Uther thought very simply. No one's first love would have a good result. It's normal to have some setbacks. If he really blamed Arthur for this matter, what if he scared Arthur? King Uther still expected Arthur to pass on his family line. It was just that Arthur's boyish self-esteem made him a little unsure about how to face other people. The turbulent day passed like this. At night, King Uther called Kai over. He had to talk to Kai, not about other things, but about Morgana. I don't understand why Morgana can't understand my painstaking efforts. Those wizards and druids are Camelot's enemies. They would rather plead for their enemies than understand me as their father. Am I doing that just out of my own selfish desires? I am protecting them. But what about them? King Uther is still sad about Morgana's cold attitude, but he will never show it. The only emotion he will show is anger. In fact, isn't there a deep sadness in this anger? His daughter is willing to turn against him for an enemy. King Uther drank a glass of wine fiercely and confided all his unhappiness and disappointment to Kay. Among all people, he trusted Kay the most because the two of them were so similar. Morgana still thinks that I didn't see through their tricks. She and Arthur worked together to deceive me and rebel against me. I am their father. If King Uther could be deceived by such a little trick, he would have been killed long ago. Looking at the sad King Uther, Kay really felt a little sympathetic for him. From Kai's perspective, it's really hard to tell who's right and who's wrong in this matter. Or to put it this way, neither of them is wrong. King Uther's anti-magic policy for so many years has destined him to be an enemy of all those who are related to magic. Is the reason why he's so nervous about magic invading Camelot really just for his own safety? What he is more afraid of is that the enemy will target his children. Look at what happened recently. He couldn't understand why Arthur and Morgana were still so stubborn. They had been hurt by magic. He tried his best to keep them away from these dangers. A druid child? Which child can compare to his own children? In order to protect them, let alone a druid child, even if all the druid children were killed, King Uther would not frown. But what about Arthur and the others? They still have to go up to him. Even at the cost of resisting him. Are Arthur and Morgana wrong? At least in Kai's opinion, it may not be the case. Animals have the instinct to protect their cubs, and humans are no exception. In fact, their emotions are richer, and they can no longer be summarized by instinct alone. Hurting children is absolutely wrong in the eyes of most people. Kai agrees with this point. Even if Kai is put in the same situation as Arthur and the others, Kai will make the same choice as them. Killing a child is completely beyond Kai's bottom line. It's just a child, Uther, you are too sensitive, Kai said. Kai, even you, King Uther was really a little shocked. I can actually understand your thoughts, but you overlooked one thing. You forgot that they are also children. Kai wanted to say this a long time ago. You protect them too well, you give them all the good things, you make them so kind that sometimes they can't look at the world with malice. Behind every bear child, there are a bunch of bear parents. This is the experience summed up by Kai in his previous life. King Uther seems to be very strict with his children, but what about it? Looking back at the experience of these years, you will find that this tyrant has never punished his children for anything, whether it is Morgana or Arthur, never. His severity always stays in words. More importantly, King Uther has a bad patience. He starts to oppress with authority after a few words. How can this be good? Of course, Kai couldn't tell the truth. You've taught them to be so kind, and you're already very proud of it. This made King Uther feel much better. But now they've grown up, they've gotten used to the environment you gave them, and you suddenly want them to be completely different? How is that possible? This is a bit like your parents in your previous life, who strictly told you not to date from elementary school to college, but as soon as you graduated from college, they forced you to date. How could the change be so fast? Especially if you never tell them your thoughts, it's even more impossible for them to understand. You need to communicate. Chapter 39, Consecration. King Uther understood what Kai said, but like all parents, he was a little reluctant to give in to his children. This behavior was very common. Many times, even if parents knew that they were wrong, they would rather cover it up with a tough attitude than apologize to their children, as if doing so would undermine their parents' dignity. King Uther was even more so. His pride really made it difficult for him to give in to anyone, especially since he didn't think he was wrong. Instead, he felt that Morgana and Arthur couldn't understand his painstaking efforts. So Kai had to be the peacemaker. Morgana and the others didn't know what was good for them. After Kai explained King Uther's painstaking efforts to them, Morgana and Arthur also understood how much of a blow their self-righteousness had dealt to King Uther. They tried their best to protect them and didn't want them to be exposed to danger, but what about them? They upheld their own justice and felt at ease to deceive and hurt King Uther, and even took the initiative to attribute all this to King Uther's fault. This idea is not only irresponsible, but also seems to be repaying kindness with enmity. After understanding all this, Morgana still didn't think there was anything wrong with letting a child go, but they did do something wrong to King Uther. They shouldn't look at and treat their father like this. In this way, with Kai's mediation, the relationship between father and daughter, father and son was greatly eased. Just when the royal family was enjoying themselves, the former enemies of Camelot were also unwilling to be lonely and returned here again. A witch came to Camelot under the cover of the night. She looked at the still prosperous Camelot and could no longer contain her anger. It's time to pay the price, Uther. After Kai came back, an important ceremony that had been prepared for a long time could finally be carried out. The prince's canonization ceremony. Canonize the prince? Who to canonize? Kai? Isn't Kai an adopted son? Of course not. The canonization here refers to Arthur. In the Celtic kingdom, prince is just a name, not a formal title, so the prince will definitely have a formal title after he comes of age. For example, Kai is a prince. When King Uther adopted Kai as his adopted son, he was already a prince. Arthur is even more so. This does not need to be formally canonized. What really needs to be canonized is the title. For example, Kai is a prince, but his title is a knight, which means that Kai has his own territory. Princes must have titles, otherwise they have no official status. This also gives the heir to the throne the opportunity to start building his own team. It is also a ceremony to formally establish the heir. For example, the eldest son of the British monarch in later generations will be named Duke of Cornwall, and the second son will be named Duke of York. In theory, the eldest son of the monarch is the heir to the throne, but there is no title of Crown Prince in the UK. The title of the heir to the throne is Prince of Wales. But in addition to this, the monarch generally does not have only one son, so other princes must also be canonized. Arthur was already an adult and should have been canonized long ago. But at that time, Arthur was the only male heir to King Uther's knee, so there was no need to rush, so it was dragged on. But now it is different. Kai's return requires the heir to the throne to be established as soon as possible. Don't forget that Kai also has the right to inherit the throne. In addition, Kai's reputation and ability are impeccable. If King Uther still drags on Arthur's canonization ceremony, it will lead to an unstable foundation for the kingdom. In feudal society, the importance of inheritance is above all else. Knights need to understand who they will be loyal to, otherwise it is very likely that the kingdom will be divided because of the unclear heir. Although King Uther is very confident in Kai, he cannot act on impulse in such matters. This is not even based on King Uther's own will. In the 2 months since Kai returned, many nobles have advised King Uther in a roundabout way to let him establish an heir as soon as possible. In short, Arthur's canonization is related to the stability of the entire kingdom, and it is not King Uther's turn to be emotional. On the third night after Kai returned, the canonization ceremony was officially held. On this day, almost all the nobles of Camelot came to the palace. Their arrival was not just to attend the ceremony and eat and drink. It was also a very important political occasion. The first thing they had to do here was to swear allegiance to the undisputed heir of Camelot. Secondly, it was also an important social event within the kingdom. In this era of very low productivity, it was not easy for the nobles of the kingdom to gather together. Although they were all in the same kingdom, the distance between them was actually quite far. There were no roads or cars here, and the road was full of barbarians, robbers, beasts and monsters, so the communication cost was too high. In order to gather the nobles of the entire kingdom, there were usually some very important occasions, such as the king's wedding, the king's accession to the throne, the king's death and the prince's canonization. Today, Kai's eldest brother and sister-in-law came. They came with Kai from the family territory. Before that, Kai received a messenger from Morgana, so he left the main force in advance and rushed to Camelot. They arrived in Camelot a day after Kai returned. Originally, Kai's father should have been present at such an occasion, but unfortunately, Sir Ector's old waist could no longer support him to come all the way to Camelot. Sir Ector was slightly older than King Uther, and he had been seriously injured on the battlefield before, so his physical condition was much worse than King Uther's. Faced with the absence of his old friend, King Uther was disappointed for a long time. He hadn't seen Ector for 2 years. He understood that as time went by, the chance of them meeting would become increasingly slim. But King Uther was still very enthusiastic about the arrival of Kai's eldest brother Eric. Eric was Ector's heir, and now Ector sent him here. The meaning was very clear. Thinking of Ector's actions, King Uther was happy and thought of himself at the same time. He felt that it was absolutely the right choice for him to canonize Arthur at this time. After all, he was not much younger than Ector. In the evening, everyone gathered in the palace hall, and in the presence of all the nobles of the kingdom, Arthur knelt on one knee in front of King Uther. "Are you willing to swear to rule the land and people of this kingdom, and follow the customs and laws passed down by your ancestors?" Arthur solemnly swore, "I do, sire." "Are you willing to swear to be fair and kind in your words and deeds?" "I do, sire." At this point, King Uther placed a golden scepter horizontally in front of Arthur. "Are you willing to swear to fulfill your lifelong duties to Camelot?" Arthur held a scepter in his hand and swore loudly, "I, Arthur Pendragon. I swear with my life, I will be loyal to the kingdom and its people for the rest of my life." King Uther smiled and let go of the scepter in his hand to let Arthur take the scepter in his hand, and then took a crown from Kai's hand. "Now, starting immediately, you will create your own era." King Uther placed the crown on Arthur's head and officially announced Arthur's title. "In the name of the kingdom and my ancestors, I appoint you as the Prince of Camelot." The original English version of "appoint you as the Prince of Camelot" is, "You shall be crown princes of Camelot." Crown princes here means the crown prince, but the translation is a bit strange, so I still use prince. There is another interesting point. When I was watching this episode, I found that the subtitles used crown princess, which almost made me laugh to death. Adding an S completely changed the meaning, and it became the crown princess. I don't know if the subtitle group is deliberately trying to be cute. Chapter 40, Resurrection of the Dead. As King Uther spoke, the crown, which was slightly smaller than the king's crown, also fell on Arthur's head. At this time, everyone began to applaud sincerely, which meant that they had a target to be loyal to, and their contract with the royal family could continue. King Uther looked at Arthur, who stood up and was much taller than him, and finally showed a gratified smile on his face, with a kind of pride that my son has grown up. After Arthur stood up, he began to gesture to the surroundings. Everyone who saw Arthur would bow to show their submission and respect, even Kai was no exception. Merlin and Gwen, who were standing behind everyone, deliberately made fun of Arthur's change of identity. Arthur might be a little proud. After seeing Kai bow to him, he turned back to look at Kai again. Kai knew what he wanted to do as soon as he saw this kid, but in such a solemn occasion, Kai would naturally not be confused about the importance, so he could only bow again. Arthur suddenly felt that the originally boring enthronement ceremony was not as boring as he imagined. At least it could make Kai, who had always been in awe, bow to him. Just when Arthur wanted to play again, Kai's face suddenly changed and he rushed out. Arthur was almost scared to death at that time. He didn't mean anything else, he just wanted to make a joke. He didn't expect Kai to rush towards him. Kai's actions immediately attracted the attention of a large number of people. These people were die-hard supporters of the royal family. What they feared most was that the royal inheritance would be lost, which was unbearable for them. So in their eyes, Kai was undoubtedly a huge threat. Now Kai suddenly rushed out, and they thought that Kai finally couldn't suppress his inner ambition and planned to disrupt the prince's canonization. But Kai's speed was too fast, so fast that they had no time to react. However, they immediately realized that Kai didn't want to disrupt Arthur's canonization ceremony. Kai rushed to Arthur's side, grabbed Arthur and pushed him behind him. Then he stood in front of Arthur, drew his swords and made a defensive posture. Crack! Boom! Just as Kai completed his defensive posture, the huge stained glass window on the side of the hall was smashed, and a knight wearing black armor and riding a huge black horse broke through the glass window and came into the hall. The sense of oppression from the Black Knight was so strong that the candles in the hall, which were originally as bright as daylight, began to flicker. At this time, the other knights reacted and drew their swords to block King Uther and Arthur. The Black Knight did not make any other moves, but rode his horse slowly towards Arthur and King Uther. He held a lance in his hand, and on the lance there was a coat of arms. The flag was black and had a white phoenix with its wings spread. There was also the same coat of arms on his shield. The heavy stomping of the horse's hooves resounded throughout the hall, and everyone was a little confused. They didn't understand why someone would be so bold to disrupt the prince's canonization. When he was only 5 steps away from King Uther and Arthur, he stopped. His helmet was very thick, with scars all over it. It was obvious that this helmet had gone through countless battles with its owner. Perhaps because of the thickness of the helmet, people could not see the knight's eyes clearly. Through the window of the helmet, they could only see a silent darkness. The knight moved his helmet, and it seemed that he was looking at everyone. Finally, he fixed his eyes on King Uther's face. Then he took off his iron gloves and threw them on the ground. Knight's challenge. Kai squinted his eyes and looked at the knight in front of him, and suddenly felt an endless malice. What's more terrible is that Kai could not feel a trace of living people from him. Just when Kai was thinking about what to do, Arthur suddenly broke free from Kai's protection and tried to bend down to pick up the iron gloves. No, Kai shouted immediately. But before Kai could hold Arthur, a young knight standing on the other side stepped out of the crowd and picked up the iron gloves in advance. Knight Owen, accept your challenge, Ferric, Kai cursed a little angrily. Of course he knew this kid. He was one of the 5 knights that Kai favored the most in the knights. He was very talented and very young, even younger than Arthur. Although his strength was not top-notch now, Kai believed that this kid would definitely become an excellent knight in time. But like all young people, he was still too self-righteous. When the Black Knight saw someone picking up his iron gloves, he did not make any other reactions, but said, "1-on-1, tomorrow at noon, until death." After saying this, the Black Knight was about to turn around and leave. Wait, Kai suddenly stopped the Black Knight. The Black Knight turned his head and looked at Kai. The duel is cancelled. Kai stood up with 2 swords in his hands. I'll replace him. What? This sentence not only shocked others, but even Owen couldn't believe it. The Black Knight glanced at Kai and ignored him, but emphasized to Owen again, "See you tomorrow at noon." After that, he never cared about Kai again and rode into the night. No one expected that Arthur's canonization ceremony would become a mess. You shouldn't have picked up the gloves, Owen. Kai sat on the chair with his hands on the armrests, looking very helpless. This kid is too stubborn. Then cancel the duel, Morgana said hurriedly. No. This is the honor of the night. I can't cancel the duel. Owen still had this attitude. He was unwilling to cancel the duel. Okay. The challenge has been accepted, and the duel is inevitable. This is the provision of the Knight's Code. King Uther's face was not good either, but he didn't know whether the canonization ceremony was disrupted or because of something else. But Morgana wanted to say something, but King Uther was not interested in listening. He waved his hand to let Owen retreat. You should have a good rest and stay in good shape. Yes, Owen was actually a little afraid before. After all, the oppression given by the Black Knight was too strong. But after this period of psychological construction, he has made up his mind. Escape is much more terrifying than death. Morgana looked at the young Owen, and the reluctance in her heart was really unbearable. She looked at Kai. Kai certainly knew what Morgana meant, and he shook his head. I have tried my best, but Owen is unwilling to let me replace him. If he had agreed before, I could still use some reasons to replace him, but now, it's too late. Arthur couldn't help it at this time. He was ready to accept the challenge before, but now, in short, he could only think about things in a positive direction. Owen's strength is already very strong, impossible. Kai interrupted him immediately. Do you know who he is? Who is he? Tristan. The former first knight of the Celtic countries, and also my former teacher. Impossible. Unexpectedly, King Uther stood up and interrupted Kai's words. He died a long time ago. He can't be alive, King Uther thought very anxiously, even a little scared. That's right, he is indeed not a living person, Kai leaned his head against the backrest of the chair and said in a low voice. I can't feel any temperature on him, no heartbeat, no breathing, only the stench of death. It seems that someone has awakened my teacher from the grave. This is impossible. King Uther still refused to believe it. It's very possible. Those wizards can do it, my majesty. I am very familiar with Tristan. His armor, shield, crown and flag are exactly the same as when he was buried. And his sense of oppression, I will not make a mistake, there is no need to deny this matter. Kai has already noticed his abnormality, but he didn't expect that Owen would pick up the iron glove so anxiously. I think we will definitely lose an excellent night tomorrow. No one can kill a dead person. King Uther actually saw that it was Tristan a long time ago. He was his brother-in-law, Arthur's uncle, and the brother of the late queen. And Tristan was killed by King Uther in the duel. King Uther just refused to believe it. Chapter 41 Tristan. Tristan was once the strongest knight in the entire Celtic countries. 20 years ago, everyone was praising his deeds. He was handsome, powerful, and full of justice. He was a well-deserved knight. He once lived in Camelot for a while. It was also at that time that Kai became Tristan's disciple under the matchmaking of King Uther and the Queen. Tristan taught Kai for a year before returning to his kingdom. However, the real reason why he became a legendary figure was not these, or not just these. His other very famous title is called Son of Sorrow. Before he was born, his father, King Ronno Livlin, died on the battlefield, and then his mother died after giving birth to him, so he was adopted by his uncle King Marco. After that, Tristan served King Marco as an excellent knight. The king also placed deep trust in this handsome knight. Originally, this would have been fine, but what made people sigh was that Tristan fell in love with someone he shouldn't have fallen in love with: Isolde, the Irish princess and the fiancée of his uncle King Marco. Isolde was the love of King Mark, who had vowed to marry her. Tristan went to Ireland under the order of King Mark to welcome Princess Isolde to marry Mark, but Tristan and Isolde fell in love with each other during the journey. The love affair with Princess Isolde aroused the jealousy of King Mark, who was originally going to marry her. Tristan was also very painful to be caught between his uncle and his lover. In the end, Tristan was forced to leave his country due to the advice of King Mark's ministers. It was at this time that he came to Camelot, where his only remaining relative was his sister, Igraine, the queen of King Uther. Unfortunately, Tristan, who had just arrived in Camelot to see his sister, received only bad news. Queen Igraine died of dystocia. Queen Igraine was Tristan's only sister, and he naturally knew the problem of his sister: she could not give birth. Because of this, Tristan completely lost his mind. He thought that all this was King Uther's fault, so he challenged King Uther to a night. Kai also witnessed the battle. Tristan was merciless, but the result of the duel was that King Uther won. Kai couldn't understand what was going on with Tristan at that time. Although he seemed crazy, he was full of death, as if he came to seek death. The result of the duel on the second day was obvious. Owen lost. However, it was precisely because of Owen's death that King Uther finally accepted the fact that the Black Knight in front of him was not a living person. From the actions of this Black Knight, both King Uther and Kai could see the strong Tristan style, which was exactly the same as his performance in the last duel, the same madness and recklessness. The only difference was that Owen clearly pierced the Black Knight's abdomen with a sword, but the Black Knight not only did not shed a drop of blood, but even did not change his movements. When Owen saw this scene, he was stunned like everyone else, and then the Black Knight took this opportunity to pierce Owen's chest with a sword. A night with a promising future came to an end. After killing Owen, the Black Knight did not stop there, but walked to the front of King Uther's stand, holding a two-handed sword, and once again dropped his iron gloves. Faced with such a naked provocation, Arthur couldn't help but stand up again, but this time someone was faster than him. Kai held the wooden fence of the stand, jumped into the arena and picked up the iron gloves dropped by the Black Knight. Knight Kai, accept this challenge, tomorrow at noon, until death. The Black Knight did not have any extra emotions, just turned his head slightly to look at King Uther, and then turned around and left the duel with his sword. Looking at this familiar yet unfamiliar back, Kai's heart was also mixed. How can you be so stupid? King Uther was very angry. He never thought that Kai, who is always calm, would be so impulsive. I want to cancel this duel. No, Your Majesty, the knight's code must be observed. Kai shook his head and said very calmly. But this time the situation is different. He is a dead man. You can't kill him. King Uther is not a fool. He is just stubborn, But when it comes to the safety of his children, he will naturally not deceive himself again. That's why I must accept this challenge. Can you find a better candidate besides me? This is also one of the reasons why Kai accepted the challenge. Indeed, the Death Knight is very terrifying, and ordinary people can't compete with him at all, but Kai is different. With his current strength, it is not difficult to deal with a corpse. It's just the resurrection of the dead. It's not like Kai hasn't seen it before. When he was in the Mesopotamian plain, he also fought with a green mummy named Osiris, who was known as the king of the underworld and the god of abundance. He is a god who has resurrected from the dead, and is extremely difficult to deal with. Not only is his own combat power extremely strong, but he can also revive the dead on the battlefield, and can summon a sea of dead souls if he is not careful. Kai confronted him several times, but he was defeated by this guy using the corpse sea tactics. The Death Knight resurrected by Tristan in front of him was several levels lower than Osiris in strength, and was nothing at all. I am familiar with Tristan, and haven't you noticed that Tristan's strength has been greatly weakened compared to when he was alive? I am sure I can deal with him. He is already dead. What can you do with him? Nothing can kill him. King Uther still did not intend to let go. After all, he cares about his own children. If it were someone else, King Uther would not bother to care. For example, Owen. Did King Uther say a word to stop him? On the contrary, if Owen backed down, King Uther would be very angry. He played double standards very well. But there is no way. The fingers are still different in length. Who doesn't have a point of closeness and distance? This is not decided. Just when King Uther was persuading Kai to give up, Merlin on the other side was also anxious. I have to say here that Merlin is really a good boy. Although he was beaten half to death by Kai, he did not hate Kai at all. On the contrary, when he learned some facts from Gaius, he was very grateful to Kai. Apart from other things, the fact that Kai was willing to help him conceal the fact after he found out that he knew magic and even asked Gaius to teach him well was enough for Merlin to be grateful to him. Osiris, the ancient Egyptian god of abundance, he was also the first god to be made into a mummy in ancient Egyptian mythology. It was also because of him that the ancient Egypt later had the tradition of mummification. The biggest feature of this god is that he is green. By the way, I want to complain about the current express delivery. The express delivery of my contract has been sent out for 4 days, but it has not been signed for today. If it is not signed for tomorrow, I will call to ask what is going on. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42 Blackmail. In order to find out the truth, Merlin and Gaius sneaked into the royal cemetery together, where they saw Tristan's coffin was destroyed, and Tristan's body in the coffin had disappeared without a trace. Seeing this scene, they were sure that the enemy they were facing was the Death Knight. A monster that was summoned from the grave by an evil wizard using powerful magic to summon the soul of a dead person. The powerful magic filled the dead soul with sadness and hatred, and it was this powerful sadness and hatred that allowed this monster to be resurrected. According to ancient books, this monster cannot be killed by any mortal weapon unless his last wish before his death is fulfilled, otherwise the dead soul will never dissipate. But the clever Merlin still found a solution that was not a solution, that is, to kill the dead soul with weapons that were not mortal. Thinking of this, he immediately ran to the library of the Grand Secretary to find a magic weapon that could kill the Death Knight. Not to mention, with the help of the Grand Secretary, Merlin found a weapon that could kill the dead from a chronicle called Belton, the sword of the dragon's habitat, which could destroy anything, regardless of life or death. After finding this, Merlin immediately thought of the dragon under the palace. Merlin's ability to act has always been off the charts. He secretly took Kai's weapons and took them to the underground dragon cave in the name of polishing. The dragon was not surprised by Merlin's visit. In fact, Merlin had come to the dragon cave many times before. Here I have to complain about Camelot's defense. King Uther did not arrange any guards for the dragon cave. I don't know why. Anyway, after Merlin told the dragon the purpose of this visit, the dragon not only didn't take it seriously, but laughed out loud. Ho ha ho ha, what did you say? Help that bastard defeat the undead knight? Ha ho ha ho ha, this is definitely the best joke I have heard since I was locked up here. Ho ha ho ha, really, Merlin, you should come here more often, so that maybe my life as a prisoner will be much better. Merlin didn't expect that the feedback he got was this. What he didn't expect was that it was not difficult to see from the dragon's words that the dragon knew Kai. How do you know, Sir Kai? The dragon stopped laughing when he heard Merlin's question. Of course. The man you are talking about is much more powerful than you think. As he was talking, the giant suddenly stopped talking, and he lowered his head and stretched out to Merlin, who was confused. Merlin was a little surprised to see the dragon suddenly silent. Just when he was about to ask something, a voice he had never expected sounded behind him. Indeed, we know each other. In a sense, we are acquaintances. All the hairs on Merlin's body stood up in an instant. He never expected that Sir Kai would appear here. At this moment, Merlin thought of a lot. What he wanted to do most now was to return to Elder and tell his mother that he loved her, because he felt that he would definitely not survive tonight. Suddenly a hand patted Merlin on the shoulder. Children should not worry about adults' affairs. What you need to do now is to study hard for me and don't think about messy things all day long. This kind of thing is not something you can interfere with now, but to Merlin's surprise, Kai did not get angry. On the contrary, his tone was very gentle. You, don't blame me. Merlin said in disbelief. Blame you? Why? Just because you want to help me? Kai asked curiously. At this moment, Merlin really didn't know how to describe it. He thought he was going to be in big trouble, but now he is not only fine, but also got Kai's commendation. Well, this should be a commendation. Okay, go back. Children should go to bed early, otherwise they won't grow tall. Although Merlin was grateful to Kai, he was more afraid of Kai. The first time he almost died in his life was because of Kai. He was so impressed that he almost formed a psychological shadow. How could he not be afraid? But just as he was about to leave, Merlin remembered something again, so he said hesitantly, that, Sir Kai, I saw in an ancient book that the sword in the dragon's hibernate can kill the undead. Since, you know Mr. Dragon, why don't you ask him to help you, Mr. Dragon? Kai looked at Merlin in surprise, then turned his head to look at the dragon Kangora. Didn't you tell the child your name? This is not a polite thing to do. The dragon seemed to have something to hide about this question, and turned his head away and didn't want to look at Kai. This is my business, don't worry about it. Kai looked at the guilty dragon, and then looked at Merlin, who looked confused, and suddenly remembered something. No wonder you talked to this child. No wonder this child thought of asking you for help. It seems that this legend is true. Haha, it's really interesting. You are afraid, Kai was just about to say the dragon's name, and the dragon immediately roared violently, interrupting Kai's words. This is between him and me, Kai. It's not your turn to intervene. The dragon was obviously afraid that Kai would reveal his name to Merlin, so he immediately changed the subject. Don't you just want me to give your double swords dragon breath? I'll help you. Kai knew the bond between the dragon and Merlin very well. Kai had only guessed before, but now he was basically sure, because the dragon didn't want Merlin to know his name. Then Merlin's true identity could only be the dragon rider. The legendary Amires. This is the surname of a family, and it is also the name of their race by the outside world. They are born with powerful magical powers, and they can control dragons, so they are also called dragon riders. The dragon's orders to the dragon rider must never be disobeyed. This is also the reason why Camelot doesn't want Merlin to know his name, because if Merlin knows his name, then in the near future, he will not be able to disobey any order of Merlin. This is not the future that the dragon wants to see. However, the dragon is right. He is the last dragon in the entire British Isles, and Amires is probably the only one left, Merlin. It is really difficult for Kai to interfere in their affairs. One more thing tried here, these two races were slaughtered by King Uther, and only these two were left. So, if we really want to talk about the awesomeness, we still have to say King Uther. He killed these two powerful races to the point of almost extinction. Okay, although I don't think it's necessary, it's better than nothing. By the way, I have a little request, please be a little more delicate when you attach the dragon breath. I don't want to embarrass Uther. Kai shrugged and put the matter aside. Camelot was almost mad. In his opinion, Kai was blackmailing him. But seeing Merlin with a face full of curiosity, Camelot really didn't have the confidence to refuse Kai, so he could only do as he was told. Chapter 43 The duel begins. The duel on the second day was held as scheduled. Almost everyone in the city was out for this duel. No one wanted to miss the duel of Camelot's first night. The characteristic of watching the excitement is not unique to the Chinese people. People all over the world cannot resist the charm of excitement and gossip. Perhaps considering the attention of this duel, King Uther had to arrange countless soldiers and knights to maintain order at the scene in advance. This also made the people present feel an unprecedented pressure. Kai stood in the center of the duel field wearing an ordinary knight's armor, where the Black Knight had been waiting for a long time. The Black Knight had been standing in front of the main gate of the palace before the duel began. He stood there like a statue for a day and a night without eating, drinking or sleeping. I don't know if he was afraid that Kai, who accepted the challenge, would run away. Duels between knights often have very strict ritual rules. For example, before the duel officially begins, the knight needs to not wear a helmet, but wear a gorgeous hood, hold high the family emblem flag, and give a speech in the center of the duel field. Usually at this time, Kai is the more silent one. He is not used to this kind of stupid opening. So he always introduces himself and puts on his helmet waiting for the duel to begin. But today, Kai is not as usual. He looks at the familiar Black Knight with a complicated expression. His crown, armor and emblem shield, Kai is very familiar with them. This is the equipment he wore when he dueled with King Uther for the last time. Tristan did not wear this kind of clothes at the beginning. He was like all the young knights who were full of vigor and vitality at the beginning. He liked gorgeous clothes, and his face that could make all women lose their minds made him the Prince Charming in all women's minds. But after that tragic love, Tristan felt that he was unworthy of his identity as a knight. He felt that he had lost his glory, so he discarded his gorgeous clothes and began to appear in front of people in black armor. Looking at Tristan like this, if Kai did not feel anything, he would definitely be lying. Although Kai had a complete outlook on life before he came here, and he had no interest in chasing stars, after meeting Tristan, he had to admit that some people are born to be admired by others. For example, Tristan's sincerity, kindness, and bravery made Kai, an old man who was already in his 30s before he came here, look up to him. Sometimes Kai often thought how great it would be if he could become someone like him. But because of a love affair that was not accepted by the world, such a nearly perfect knight eventually fell into the abyss. To be honest, Kai actually didn't really accept the love affair between Tristan and the Irish princess Isolde. Kai is a traditional person and naturally rejects this kind of love triangle. In his concept, this is originally immoral, not to mention that the woman is his uncle's woman, which is even more serious. Tristan has the appearance, strength, money, and status. What kind of woman can't he get? This relationship was a bit impulsive from the beginning. But Kai also had to admit that love is really not something that can be simply summarized by reason. In short, Kai had mixed feelings about Tristan's death. But it was more of a sadness. He was unfortunate enough when he was alive. But he didn't expect that his soul would be desecrated after his death. "Good day, Knight Tristan," Kai asked the attendant holding his helmet to step aside first, and then bowed to the Black Knight and performed a knight's sword salute. The Black Knight did not respond, and still looked at Kai like a statue. Kai didn't care. Strictly speaking, the current Tristan is not the real Tristan. His soul has been filled with sadness and hatred, and it can't be considered a normal soul at all. I didn't expect that the reunion after 20 years would be such a scene. It's really sad. The scenes more than 20 years ago seem to have happened yesterday. I thought that your back would always be for me to look up to, but I didn't expect that one day, I could still stand in front of you and challenge you. Although Kai was sad that Tristan's body and soul were desecrated, he was also lucky that his long-cherished wish had been fulfilled. For Kai, Tristan is definitely an idol-level player. Fighting a knight duel with a powerful opponent is one of the dreams of almost all knights, because no matter whether they win or lose, it means honor. The glory of a knight cannot be represented by a simple victory or defeat. Kai has received so many years of knight education, and he was originally a martial artist. Challenging the strong is basically an instinct in his bones. 20 years ago, when Tristan was at his peak, he was just a little kid and had no qualifications to fight against such a top knight, so he could only think about it, but now, this vision is presented in another way. Kai's memories did not cause Tristan's reaction. Seeing this scene, Kai was a little disappointed. Although it was indeed Tristan who was fighting against him, how could a puppet who only knew killing and hatred compare with the high-spirited Tristan at the time? Kai waved his hand and asked the attendant to hand over the helmet. Kai put on the helmet and asked the attendant to take off his cloak. Patting the helmet, Kai walked towards the Black Knight with two swords in hand. I have one last request, Knight Tristan. If possible, I hope you can fight me as a real knight, instead of insulting your honor in this horrible and hateful form. I believe you can hear me. After all, you were once the best knight in the world. You will definitely be able to defeat the dirty magic trick. Although the Death Knight is a puppet, his soul still belongs to him. There is no doubt about this. Like many old-school Chinese people, Kai has a mysterious obsession with spiritual attributes. They all believe that those who have the will can achieve their goals. Thinking back to the early days of the founding of China, the country was so difficult, but relying on backward equipment and continuous efforts, it developed 2 bombs and 1 satellite. This is the best proof. Therefore, Kai believes that Knight Tristan's will definitely get rid of the control of evil magic. Kai's words made the Black Knight raise his head slightly. Then he remained silent again. Kai didn't know whether his call could awaken Tristan's will. However, it didn't matter anymore. The duel began. As the duel bell rang, the 2 knights immediately faced each other. Kai was obviously very cautious. He did not launch an attack right away, but kept looking for the flaws of the Black Knight and did not intend to attack right away. But the Black Knight was different. He was not cautious at all, but chopped down with his sword right away. The Black Knight used a 2-handed knight sword. This weapon was actually used by knights for training more often, and the chance of it appearing on the battlefield was not high. This weapon was too heavy. Unless one was gifted, one would not be able to swing it a few times on the battlefield. Moreover, the speed of the attack was not really fast. But one thing is certain, that is, this thing is really powerful. This sword is sharper than an axe. Kai was very calm in the face of the oncoming sword. This level of attack did not make him panic. He dodged the great sword by turning sideways, and at the same time, his left hand counterattacked while turning sideways. Chapter 44 Duel. The length of the giant sword determines its power, so there is a saying in martial arts, an inch longer, an inch stronger, an inch shorter, an inch more dangerous. Long and strong, sharp and sharp, short and cunning, and hidden murderous intent. An inch longer, an inch stronger means that the longer the weapon in hand, the wider the attack range and the greater the attack power. An inch shorter, an inch more dangerous means that the shorter the weapon in hand, the closer you must be to the opponent to attack, and the faster you move during the fight, the greater the risk. The danger here does not mainly mean that you bear the danger, but the way of fighting, which is a life and death fighting method that can quickly kill the enemy. And Kai took this danger. His weapon is a long sword of ordinary length, which is much shorter than the giant sword. If Kai followed his previous fighting style, he would rush to attack at the beginning, which would be a weak against a strong, and he would lose a hand by nature. After all, you may not get close to the opponent, and the giant sword of others may have already chopped you on the forehead. The Death Knight may not be as strong as a living person in other aspects, but there is one thing that is definitely much stronger than a living person, that is strength. Therefore, it is difficult for ordinary people to swing the giant sword, but this disadvantage is greatly reduced here with the Black Knight. So Kai paid attention to defensive counterattacks from the beginning. Although the Black Knight is very powerful and the giant sword in his hand is not slow. But inertia is something that even a dead person cannot avoid. Although he attacks with great force, it is not so easy to retract and change moves and defend in time like a short weapon after swinging such a strong force. Kai took advantage of this tiny flaw. He launched an attack in the gap after the Black Knight swung his sword. The Black Knight was also very decisive. Just when Kai's left-handed sword was about to hit his head, he slid back and pulled a little distance, so that the long sword only hit the surface of the armor. Although it failed to hide him, it splashed a burst of sparks. The people around exclaimed again and again. After the attack missed, Kai did not continue to be unreasonable as usual. Instead, he retreated cautiously and distanced himself again. Against ordinary people, Kai could certainly seize the opportunity to continue to attack, but the problem was that the man in front of him was not an ordinary person. He was not even a human being now. His previous reaction of distance was completely instinctive. He was not afraid that Kai's attack would hurt him. How could a dead person be afraid of being hurt? If Kai really attacked blindly, what awaited Kai would definitely be a tragic fight with his life. No, it should be said that Kai would risk his own life to fight against others. Others were already dead, even if the long sword in Kai's hand had been polished by dragon breath and had the power to kill undead. But even so, the Black Knight would at most turn from a corpse into ashes, which was essentially the same. But if Kai was chopped by that giant sword, He would directly advance from a living person to a dead person. This was too much of a loss. So Kai could only retreat to protect himself. The Black Knight in front of him was just acting on instinct. He was strong, but it was nothing. He just had to look for opportunities slowly. As the distance widened again, the Black Knight could not help but rush over to attack again. This time, Kai did not choose to dodge, but decided to block. He crossed his two swords to block the slash of the giant sword. Then, Kai slid his right sword to remove the giant sword to the side, and at the same time, he stabbed the Black Knight in the chest with his left sword. The Black Knight was not so easy to deal with. He let go of the two-handed giant sword with one hand, and used the iron gauntlet to lift it up, swinging Kai's straight stab away. The knight's iron gloves and armor are very thick, which are the thickest parts besides the breastplate and helmet. They can serve as shields when there is no shield in the hand. However, generally speaking, few knights would do this, because it requires very high skills. You must know how to unload and block, otherwise you may really have a sword cut off a part of your arm. While swinging Kai's long sword, the Black Knight raised his leg and kicked Kai in the abdomen. Kai had no choice but to bend his knees and block the Black Knight's kick with his knees. With a muffled sound, both were pushed away by the opponent's power. However, this time the Black Knight did not give Kai a chance to distance himself. When the two of them just distanced themselves, the Black Knight, holding his giant sword, slashed back and forth to prevent Kai from gaining a firm footing. In order to avoid his sword, Kai could only stand still and use his long sword to block again. With the sword blocking him, Kai's pace was inevitably affected. It was also this opportunity that the Black Knight seized. He took a step forward without waiting for himself to gain a firm footing, and kept alternating horizontal kicks with both feet. He took a big step forward, and his whole body was slightly bent, rushing forward like a cheetah hunting for prey. The two-handed giant sword in his hand had been put away before his body rushed forward, waiting for the Black Knight to take a big step forward, and when the waist and abdomen strength was accumulated to the maximum, a thrust, a giant sword, was as fast as a poisonous snake out of a hole. This attack was not only extremely fast, but also full of power, and coupled with the perfect timing, it was very difficult to defend. This move was once Tristan's signature move, and countless enemies had suffered from this move. Fortunately, Kai had also learned this move before and knew how to defend against it. Before Tristan made a move, Kai threw away the two long swords in his hands, opened his legs slightly, clenched his left fist on his abdomen, clenched his other fist, and exerted force from his feet, thrusting his hips, turning his waist, and punching. This punch hit the side of the giant sword. Ling. The giant sword was opened at once, and at the same time, the middle door of the Black Knight was also opened due to inertia. Kai naturally would not miss this good opportunity. Following the inertia of the right fist just now, he directly raised his right leg and kicked the Black Knight's waist with a sideways whip kick. The Black Knight was kicked up and then fell to the ground. Didn't I say before that Kai was a martial artist in his previous life? Although he didn't achieve much fame in his previous life, even so, his boxing and kicking skills were not weak for ordinary people. In this time and space, Kai did not give up his previous kung fu. In fact, because of his golden finger, his kung fu in this life has been improved to a level that he never thought of in his previous life. For this, he consumed a lot of energy points. To be honest, Kai's strongest skill is actually his fists and feet. Weapons are just an accessory. Let's put it this way, according to Kai's current martial arts level, plus his physical fitness, if he really goes back, he can really reproduce the level of heroes in TV novels in the real world. Of course, there is no way to do Kingguang, such as the kind of Kingguang that flies around on leaves, which has already escaped the Earth's gravity. Kai can forget about it even if he practices for another 100 years. As Kai knocked the Black Knight away, the scene suddenly cheered like thunder. Only Kai didn't feel happy, because although the Black Knight looked embarrassed, it was just a face-saving move, and the real damage he suffered was even close to zero. I finally signed the contract today, but I caught a cold, stuffy nose, dizziness, runny nose, and want to sleep. The weather these 2 days is really weird, 26 degrees during the day, and only about 10 degrees at night. Book friends should also pay attention to their health and wear more clothes. Chapter 45 Duel. Sure enough, before Kai could take advantage of the victory, the Black Knight stood up with a somersault. It is said that the best result of a corpse that has been dead for 20 years can only be a mummy. Where is the skin and flesh on the body, let alone muscles? But even so, this Black Knight can still do somersaults in armor weighing more than 100 kilograms. This principle is really confusing. So, magic is really amazing. Seeing that the Black Knight rushed towards him like a bull again, Kai was also helpless. The reason why he didn't like fighting close combat with the undead the most was because of this. If it hits you, you will be seriously injured even if you don't die, but when you hit it, others don't care at all. It's very unfair. Especially when Kai has many spells that he can't use at all, it's even more so. But since he agreed to the battle, there is no reason to give up halfway, so Kai didn't back down. This time he was too lazy to think so much, and he just raised his fist to meet it. It's not that Kai can't use the magic sword polished by dragon breath to kill the undead in front of him. But he still chose to respect Tristan. Even if he was just a puppet, he still planned to defeat him openly. He had kept the two swords from the beginning, ready to give Tristan the final glory at the end of the battle. But before that, he would take this battle seriously. So Kai went up with his bare hands. Seeing Kai like this, the onlookers screamed. In the eyes of ordinary people, when two people fight, one holding a weapon and the other empty-handed, the one holding the weapon naturally has the advantage. Now Kai is obviously at a disadvantage when he is fighting the Black Knight with his bare hands. But people who are familiar with Kai don't think so. People who really understand Kai know that Kai's strongest time is when he gives up his weapon. Before everyone's exclamation fell, Kai was like a flash of lightning, aggressively breaking into the attack range of the Black Knight. After all, the Black Knight is not a real living person, and his reaction speed is not as strong as the real Tristan. So before he could attack, Kai broke into the middle door. Kai opened his hands, and his right hand went through the sword-holding right hand of the Black Knight, and passed through his armpit. At the same time, Kai stepped hard between the Black Knight's feet. He stepped on his feet, kicked his legs, and turned his waist. The movements were continuous, a bit like the Olympic throwing athletes who had to use the strength of each part of their body to throw the object. But the difference was that Kai put all his strength on his left shoulder. Bang! There was a huge muffled sound, and in this muffled sound, there was also a subtle sound of bone breaking. The armor on the Black Knight's chest was dented, and the whole person flew out like a cannonball. Bajiquan Iron Mountain Lean. As mentioned earlier, Kai learned Bajiquan in his previous life. Bajiquan is a short-range boxing method, and its movements pursue toughness, simplicity, and rapid force. In terms of fighting techniques, it emphasizes inch-by-inch interception, inch-by-inch grabbing, and hard hitting and hard opening. It truly has the characteristics of being hit, helping, squeezing, leaning, collapsing, and shaking as generally described. Bajiquan exerts force from the heels, moves from the waist, and penetrates the fingertips. So it has great explosive power and is full of martial arts characteristics, with a momentum of shaking the arms to knock the sky down, stomping the feet to shake the 9 states. This kind of boxing emphasizes practicality and pursues lethality. Among them, the unique move Iron Mountain Lean is the best. The key to the Iron Mountain Lean when making a move is to move forward, approach the opponent at a distance of hitting like kissing, and hit the opponent with the shoulder. It seems to use the shoulder as the force point, but in fact it combines the twisting force of the waist and hips, and uses the whole body's strength to lean towards the opponent, causing great harm to people. If you really meet a master, being leaned on like this will definitely kill or injure you. Therefore, all disciples who learn Bajiquan actually learn to be a good person first. The purpose of practicing boxing is to strengthen the body, not to fight for strength and fierceness, and disciples are not encouraged to really fight. What they are afraid of is causing some bad social impact. Therefore, in his previous life, Kai's number of times of really making a full-strength attack was definitely very few. When he was in the army, he had no chance. Because the army does not advocate physical combat with people. After all, the weapons in your hands are not firewood sticks. If you don't use your guns and go to fight with the enemy, it's just a disease. When you become a policeman, you will use it even less. There is no way. The police generally follow the principle of minimum force in law enforcement, focusing on subduing people instead of hurting people. So when Kai arrests criminal suspects, he usually uses grappling and rarely uses Bajiquan. You won't believe it, but Kai has been a policeman for 7 years and has hardly touched a gun. If there is no place for shooting in the police force, Kai suspects that he will even lose his shooting skills in a few more years. Kai has learned boxing for more than 10 years, but it is of no use in actual combat. Of course, this is a bit biased. After all, martial arts training has indeed laid a good foundation for him, so it can't be said to be useless. But sometimes he can't help thinking so. Like all children who practice martial arts, he has a dream of becoming a hero. Unfortunately, it was a modern society at that time. There was no chance at all. Kai traveled to this era, and his skills were put to good use, but he wanted to go back to that peaceful era. Or else people are mean by nature. The moment the Black Knight was knocked away, Kai did not stop. On the contrary, Kai did not intend to let go. He approached and brushed the ground, leaving 2 long marks wherever he passed. As the old saying goes, boxing should be chasing the wind and the moon without relaxation, not giving the enemy a chance to breathe. Rising and falling hard, opening the opponent's door hard, and advancing continuously are the biggest features of Bajikwan. At the moment when he knocked the Black Knight away with an Iron Mountain lean, his body moved freely and went straight to the center line of the Black Knight. Most of the large organs in these parts of the human body, such as the spleen, which are easily injured, are concentrated here. Once attacked, the damage will be more obvious. Although this is nothing to the Black Knight. This is just Kai's attack habit. Kai moves like a bow and fires like thunder. The 2 fists turned into afterimages and continuously hit the Black Knight. Only the muffled sound was heard, like thunder, swift and dense. The Black Knight was originally knocked away by an Iron Mountain. Although he maintained his balance and did not fall down with his excellent fighting instinct, he was hit by Kai's torrential blow before he could stand firm. Facing Kai's overwhelming momentum, the Black Knight could only passively parry. There was no other way. Bajikwan emphasizes that the force should be sudden and fierce, catching people off guard, and having a crushing momentum. The force of each punch is the overall force, and the force is emitted from the human body to the outside, and all parts are highly coordinated and launched at the same time, fully stimulating the potential in the human body, causing it to burst out instantly. But after all, the Black Knight is not a living person. After the initial fluster, the Black Knight immediately abandoned defense and chose to exchange injuries for injuries. Because it was a close combat, the Black Knight had no chance and couldn't use the huge sword in his hand, so he simply held the sword with one hand and used one hand to counterattack, hoping to repel Kai and get more room to move. Facing the Black Knight's straight punch, Kai took a side step to the side of the Black Knight and punched the joint of the Black Knight's straight punch. Crack! One of the Black Knight's hands was chopped off by Kai, but Kai took advantage of the situation and after blocking the Black Knight's straight punch and letting the Black Knight's middle door open, he immediately punched the Black Knight in the throat, causing the Black Knight's body to lean back unconsciously. Also taking advantage of the moment when the Black Knight couldn't fight back, Kai's fists immediately rained down on the Black Knight's face. The cold is still not healed, and I have to go to work during the day. It's really miserable. Chapter 46 Duel. Overlord's Hard Rain Break. Snap. One of the Black Knight's hands was chopped off by Kai, but Kai was not willing to give up. After opening the Black Knight's straight punch and letting the Black Knight's middle door open, he immediately punched the Black Knight's throat, causing the Black Knight's body to lean back unconsciously. Also taking advantage of the Black Knight's inability to fight back, Kai's fists immediately rained down on the Black Knight's face. Overlord's Hard Rain Break is the last single-handed technique of the 8 openings. It is powerful and can easily break the opponent's defense and enter easily. At the same time, the fists and palms of both arms can change with each other at any time, or chop or hit, directly attacking the vital points. However, Kai rarely uses this move on living people, because once used, it is absolutely either death or injury. Overlord's Hard Rain Break is a killer move that specializes in the face and throat of people. Even in normal practice, it is easy to hurt people, not to mention actual combat. But the same thing goes, the Black Knight is not a human, so although Kai's move deformed the Black Knight's helmet, he still stood firmly. Facing this kind of indestructible meat target, Kai naturally couldn't give up easily. So his fists did not relax, and took advantage of the unstable footing to continue to attack. The Black Knight had one hand broken because of Kai's broken reins of Overlord Hard broken reins, so he had to lift the giant sword with one hand and cross it across his upper body to increase the defense area and prevent important parts such as the head and chest from being attacked. Although this Black Knight is an undead, his body's instincts still exist, and some defensive movements are completely uncontrollable. Just when he couldn't take care of his upper body, Kai kicked the Black Knight's knee with his foot. This is the force point of the human body, and it doesn't take much force to destroy the balance of the human body, so the Black Knight staggered. The moment the Black Knight lost his balance, his head was exposed. Facing this opportunity, Kai naturally would not let it go. He twisted his body, raised his legs to his head, and chopped down fiercely on the Black Knight's head like a big axe. Bang! The Black Knight's instinctive reaction was actually quite fast. At the moment when Kai's kick hit his head still slightly moved to the side, but the movement was still too slow. So the whole person fell to the ground, and the helmet on his head was kicked away by this blow. But the moment his helmet fell to the ground, the people present finally saw the Black Knight's face. A shrunken, black, and hideous mummy had appeared in front of everyone. The gossipers in Camelot City had certainly discussed the identity of the Black Knight, but no one could say anything. After all, it had been almost 20 years since the incident. How many people could still remember this? But now, to everyone's surprise, there was a terrifying mummy under the helmet. Hearing the screams of fear at the scene, Kai frowned. To be honest, he was really a little disappointed. At the same time, he felt even more sad. The knight Tristan, whom he once admired and yearned for, actually appeared in front of the world in such an abominable form. Kai wanted to face the real Tristan, not the ugly puppet in front of him. Seeing this scene, Kai really had no mood to compete. Tristan should remain in people's hearts with that perfect image. He should be glorious, not like now, standing in front of the world in an evil posture, which is the greatest insult to him. This duel can no longer be called glorious, so Kai decided to give the final relief. Kai ignored the Black Knight, who was reinstalling the head that was drooping on one side on his neck, but turned around to pick up his double swords. It's over. You are no longer Tristan. Don't worry, I will find the murderer behind the scenes and let him know the price of blaspheming a warrior. Kai walked to the front of the Black Knight calmly and said softly. After that, Kai rushed up waving the dragon breath sword. The result of the final battle was already obvious. This undead was not Kai's opponent at all. Although the undead is immortal, its bones can still break. With multiple broken bones in the body, his strength is no longer systematic, and his movements are extremely awkward. He can't keep up with Kai's movements at all, so Kai quickly cut off his head with his double swords. As his head was chopped off, a bright fire came out from the withered and shriveled body, and then turned into a cloud of flying ash. Tristan disappeared completely. At the same time, a wave of energy also poured into Kai's body. This caught Kai off guard. This energy was very huge, and it increased Kai's energy bar by almost 30%. It was also this 30% energy influx that gave Kai an energy point. Seeing this unexpected gain, Kai raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that this duel with a good start but a bad end would actually have such a big gain. Kai had killed undead before, but he had never gained so much that time. Could it be that he really killed Tristan's soul just now? Thinking of this, Kai inevitably felt a little depressed. It was certainly gratifying to get soul energy, but if the object was someone he had admired, it would be a different mentality. This made Kai feel like he had killed Tristan himself. Fortunately, Kai's psychological quality has always been strong, and he quickly adjusted. After all, the corpse that was controlled by hatred and sadness just now could not be called Tristan. Even if the soul in the corpse was Tristan, Kai was just letting him off. Kai believed that with Tristan's pride, even if he completely died, he would never be able to tolerate his corpse being desecrated like this. As the Black Knight turned to ashes, the entire duel field erupted in thunderous cheers. Kai, the knight representing Camelot, killed a ghost from the underworld. Is there anything more topical than this? I believe that it won't be long before the deeds of Kai and the Death Knight will spread throughout the Celtic countries. And the strength of Camelot has been proven once again. So whether it is the people or King Uther, they are all unusually happy. Only Kai seems a little unhappy. In the evening, after a lively dinner that satisfied almost everyone, King Uther returned to his room alone. King Uther seemed a little exhausted about what happened in the past 2 days. He knew better than anyone that this matter was not over. Everything had just begun when Tristan's body was desecrated. It had been 20 years, and he thought that everything would end with time, but when Tristan's body stood in front of him, King Uther knew that everything was just his wishful thinking. He could not escape the old things of 20 years ago. And everything entangled him again 20 years later. Thinking about these things, King Uther felt more tired than ever before. But at this moment, a gust of wind suddenly blew in the originally closed room. King Uther looked up at the candle that was flickering in the wind, and his eyes were full of sadness. He slowly turned around, and a beautiful girl in red was already standing not far behind him. No draft saved? I'm so anxious. I was not typing fast to begin with, and I took 2 days off. There are fewer and fewer drafts saved. Chapter 47, Revenge. I should have thought of it earlier, King Uther said in a low voice. I don't expect you to think of it, Uther. The red-dressed beauty looked at the slightly old King Uther with a playful look, her eyes full of mockery and pleasure. She obviously liked to see King Uther show his weakness in front of her. Nay, revenge, aren't you tired? King Uther hated and feared a beautiful woman in front of him. He knew too well how powerful this woman was. He originally thought that they would never meet again in this life, but in the end. What about you? It was you who started the war, Uther. It was you who drove me out of the palace and killed all my kind. Niue, who had always seemed unusually calm, suddenly became excited, and hatred and anger burst out in her eyes, making King Uther feel a burning sensation. But even so, King Uther did not think he was wrong. You asked for it. You are learning black magic. It is you who made me unbearable. Seeing King Uther, who still had no guilt even now, Niue suddenly felt sad. I was your friend, Uther, and you welcomed me to your court, but you betrayed our friendship. King Uther interrupted Niue. He didn't want to recall the good times, because that would remind him of the unforgettable after the good times. I just did what you wanted. I used the magic you always despised to make your wife who didn't lay eggs pregnant with the son you dreamed of. When King Uther heard Niue mention his wife, his eyes immediately became sharp. He suppressed his anger and said, You are not allowed to say that about her. She is my favorite, my soul. Perhaps because he missed his wife, King Uther actually brought out a little tenderness at the end. This kind of emotion is hard to see on King Uther's face, but it is this little tenderness that makes Niue feel extremely angry and jealous. Perhaps she and King Uther would not admit it, but they did have a period of mutual attraction. Unfortunately, this relationship that has not yet begun soon underwent a test of life and death. But, you took her away from me. Seeing the hatred on King Uther's face, Niue's heart was also filled with sadness. She thought that if she gave King Uther what he wanted most, he would be happy. Unfortunately, the opposite happened. She died to give birth to your son. This is not my choice, this is the law of magic. To create a life, you must take a life. The conservation of the world must be respected, but such remarks would only make King Uther more angry. He supported the table and leaned forward, the anger in his eyes even wanted to burn everything in front of him. You knew she would die like this. But you still watched it happen. No. You are wrong, I didn't know. Niue's eyes revealed a trace of regret. All this started from her wish to satisfy Uther, but the price of fulfilling the wish was that both of them fell into the abyss of hatred and regret. If I could foresee her death and your revenge on me, I would never fulfill your wish. King Uther also lowered his head. Hasn't he been living in regret all these years? He hunted down wizards and destroyed everything related to magic, mostly to vent his anger. But what could he do? If possible, he would have wished that nothing had happened. I really wish you didn't. Now it was Niue's turn to be a little surprised. She looked at Uther in surprise. You wish you didn't have this son. Niue certainly knew how much Uther wanted to have an heir. If it wasn't for this, how could she have helped Queen Igraine get pregnant? Uther opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but when he thought of Arthur, he couldn't say it anyway. Seeing the tangled Uther, Niue smiled. Then I can help you make your dream come true again. Hearing this, the sadness and regret on King Uther's face were all swept away, and he became cold and resolute again. I won't let you hurt him. Absolutely not. Unfortunately, this couldn't scare Niue. I have seen too many people I love die in your hands, Uther Pendragon. Now it's your turn. But before Niue finished speaking, King Uther's door was kicked open, and a cold light shot out at the moment the door was kicked open, hitting Niue's vest. At the same time, a figure rushed into the room. Niue's face changed, and she immediately turned around and pushed her palm, blocking the cold light. The cold light was instantly fixed. It was a knight's long sword. At this time, the figure had already rushed in front of Niue. Niue pushed her palm again, and the long sword that was originally fixed was reflected back. Unfortunately, the person's reaction was not slow. When the long sword shot in front of him, he grabbed the long sword and slashed at Niue with his backhand. A faint red light flashed in Niue's pupils, and the long sword in the man's hand suddenly became red and hot, as if it was melting in the fire. The palm of the man holding the sword was also burned and smoke came out. But the man seemed to be completely unaware of it. The sword in his hand not only hesitated, but also became more decisive, and the speed increased by more than double. Seeing this scene, Niwai frowned. She obviously didn't expect someone to be so stubborn, holding the red-hot iron in his hand but still unshakable. There was no way, she could only step aside. This time was not enough for her to cast a spell again. The figure did not chase, but appeared in front of King Uther. Only then did Niwai see the appearance of the person clearly. "Kai, it's a pleasure to see you again, Miss Niwai." Kai then changed his hand and continued to hold the sword. Niwai's blow just now did make Kai's palm a little burned, but it was not serious. Kai was wearing gloves. After changing the sword, Kai elegantly gave Niwai a knight's salute. "You are still so beautiful. Can you tell me how you maintain it? You should know that I already have a fiancé. If you are willing to tell me, I can also please the girl I like." Kai naturally knew Niwai. 20 years ago, although Kai was just a little brat, he was still full of interest in magic. He even used to act cute and act like a child, hoping to learn magic from Niwai. Unfortunately, Uther refused to let Kai become a magician. Later, after the incident with Kai's adoptive mother, Niwai also disappeared under the pursuit of King Uther. It has been exactly 20 years since they last saw each other. Like Kai, Niwai did not have any bad feelings towards Kai. After all, she watched Kai grow up, and the grudges between them could not be attributed to Kai. "I didn't expect that the little guy who always followed me and pestered me to learn magic has grown up. Now he has a fiancé. Hey. Kai used to say that he would marry me when he grew up, but I didn't expect that you have fallen in love with other women in the blink of an eye. Am I really old?" As he said this, he touched his face in a pretentious manner. Chapter 48 Secret. Seeing Niwai's behavior, Kai smiled. "How is it possible? You are still so young, beautiful and radiant." Although Kai was still joking with Niwai, he was still alert. His eyes were always fixed on Niwai, and he didn't put down the long sword in his hand. Looking at Kai like this, Niwai felt a little unpredictable. Thinking of the child who used to be so cute and clingy around her, now she is holding a long sword and confronting her. "Oh? Is this how you welcome me?" Niwai pointed at the long sword in Kai's hand with a smile. "Oh. This is a misunderstanding." "Yes, it is a misunderstanding. You should be able to understand. After all, you came to the king's room in the middle of the night without any notification, which is not a good habit," Kai said pretentiously. Of course, he was not here to talk nonsense. Kai was not that idle, he was just stalling for time. Without using any supernatural powers, Kai could not take down Niwai. Although it was a long time ago, Kai still remembered how Niwai used to deal with her enemies. As expected, Kai delayed for a while, and the shouts of soldiers came from the door. It seemed that the guards in the castle did not neglect their duties. Niwai looked at the door, and then looked at Kai with a very playful look. Kai spread his hands and said helplessly, "There is no way. Your power is too strong. I don't have the confidence to protect Uther's safety while taking you down, so I can only use this little trick." Niwai was not angry, but said in a very relieved and resentful tone, "Yes, my little boy has grown up and has learned to use tricks on his favorite sister. Not long ago, that little boy said all day that he would marry me when he grew up." Kai pulled the corner of his mouth. He had never said such a thing. These were all jokes made by those bored adults at that time. After all, he was almost 40 years old when he traveled through time. How could he say such a stupid thing? "I'm sorry. But if you are willing to sit down and talk calmly, I think the atmosphere between us will be very good. What do you think?" Kai had no intention of commenting on who was right or wrong in the past. Both Uther and Nineveh had their own reasons. Uther did want an heir, but he never asked Nineveh and Queen Igraine to help him give birth to an heir. But at that time, almost all of Camelot hoped that King Uther would have a legitimate heir as soon as possible, which was related to the stability of the entire Camelot. Otherwise, after King Uther died, Camelot would definitely break out in a war of heirs, which no one wanted to see. It is conceivable how much pressure Uther and Igraine faced at the time. Especially after they actually adopted Kai as their adopted son, the situation became even worse. No one would like to see a person who does not have royal blood become the king's heir, which made many nobles who were related to King Uther very dissatisfied, because even if they wanted to find an heir, they should look for it among the nobles with royal blood. So under this huge pressure, Uther and Igraine did not have an easy life. Especially Igraine, she loved King Uther and was of course willing to give birth to a child for him. At the same time, Many nobles have already made suggestions to King Uther. If the queen can't give birth to an heir, they suggest changing the queen. Under such double pressure, Igraine found Newey. Newey saw that King Uther was tortured to death by the heir issue. And she also wanted to help Uther, so the two women used magic behind Uther's back. When it became an established fact, King Uther could only accept it. If King Uther's biggest fault in this matter is that he did not stop it after he found out. He didn't expect the price to be so high at the time, and that's why he reacted so much afterwards. And what about Newey? She was also wrong. She knew that giving birth to a child with magic would cost a price, but she concealed it. Perhaps in her opinion, Igraine got what she wanted, and it was her choice even if she paid the price. Of course, if there were no other reasons in it, it would not be realistic. After all, Newey did have a good impression of King Uther at the time, and she also wanted to take this opportunity to get promoted. Anyway, in her opinion, it was a win-win situation. If Igraine was fine, she would naturally be grateful to Uther. If Igraine died, then both sides would get what they wanted. The logic was perfect. Unfortunately, some things were so evil. Igraine really died, but her idea of becoming king was also shattered, and she became enemies with King Uther. So, it was really hard to tell who was right and who was wrong. It would be better to sit down and talk. If there was a result that everyone could accept, everyone would be happy. Impossible, don't even think about it. Unfortunately, Kai was still wishful thinking. In the past 20 years, the two sides have been in blood feud. Unless one side really falls, no one will give up. At this time, Night Lion had already rushed into the king's bedroom with a large number of knights and soldiers. Seeing these knights, Newey shook her head. It seems that the reminiscing is over, and I should leave. However, Uther, I will definitely take back what you owe me. After saying that, Newey turned into a gust of wind and disappeared. The knights were still planning to attack, but in the blink of an eye, they had disappeared without a trace. Newey made a big fuss this time, alarming many people. Arthur and Morgana both came over, but soon, they were driven away by King Uther in a very tough attitude. He didn't want the two children to know what happened that year, as there were too many things involved. In the end, only Kai, Gaius and King Uther were left in the room. Gaius helped Kai deal with his burned palm while hesitating to speak. What do you want to say, Gaius? King Uther noticed Gaius's abnormality and asked a little impatiently. Today's events have exhausted him physically and mentally, and he no longer has much patience to maintain his demeanor. You can't hide the truth forever. Maybe you should talk to Arthur and let him know the truth of that year, Gaius said sincerely. Since Tristan's body was desecrated, things have been developing in the direction they least want to see. Gaius felt that since this is the case, there is no point in continuing to hide the truth. No. Only the three of us know about this. Arthur never needs to know the truth. Forever, King Uther refused flatly. He couldn't let Arthur know the truth of that year. This would have extremely serious consequences for him, Arthur, and the entire Camelot. He couldn't let this happen. But the boy has grown up. He has become a man. Have you forgotten? You just crowned him 2 days ago. He should know the truth. You can't hide it forever, Uther. Gaius still hoped to convince King Uther. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49, Too Much Involvement. I am the king. You don't need to tell me what to do. King Uther has never been a person who likes to listen to other people's opinions. To put it bluntly, he is stubborn and self-willed. This character is very bad, but in feudal society, most rulers have problems, and it is not uncommon. And the key is that he is the boss, he is stubborn and self-willed, and no one dares to say anything. At least Gaius doesn't dare. Your Majesty, of course it is up to you to decide what to do. King Uther stared at Gaius. You swore that you would never reveal the secret of Arthur's birth. I warn you not to break your oath. Very well, sire, Gaius said disappointedly. Okay, Gaius. Don't say anything. You go back first. I will have a good chat with Uther. You go to rest. Things haven't come to that point yet, although King Uther always looks serious and expressionless, he is actually a very emotional person. Once he gets angry, he will always do something that he will regret. Kai didn't want his decades-long friendship with Gaius to have any problems, so he quickly interrupted and asked Gaius to leave first. Gaius looked at King Uther, who was still glaring at him, and nodded helplessly. Okay, I'll go first. Remember, don't let your wound get wet in the next 2 days, and it will heal in 2 days. After saying that, Gaius packed up his medicine box and turned to leave the king's bedroom. After Gaius left, King Uther's originally angry expression also subsided, and he sat down on the chair tiredly, looking exhausted. Kai did not talk to King Uther immediately, but picked up the wine jug on the table and poured himself a glass of wine to moisten his throat. King Uther did not speak either, but kept rubbing his face, trying to calm himself down. After about 10 minutes, Kai finally spoke. I think Gaius is right, Uther. Arthur should know some of the truth. You can't always treat him as a child. Kai actually supported Gaius, but King Uther was too excited just now. If he added fuel to the fire, with King Uther's fucked up temper, it might really end in a bad mood. That was totally unnecessary, so Kai would wait for King Uther to calm down before speaking his mind. King Uther looked up at Kai in surprise. He didn't expect that even his most trusted child would oppose him. Why do you say that too, Kai? Others don't know what kind of impact the truth would have if it were made public, but don't you know? If other people knew the secret of Arthur's birth, then what I have done over the years would become a joke. The whole Camelot would be on the verge of collapse. Don't think this is just a small matter. On the contrary, this matter is very big, so big that King Uther would not want to reveal this secret even if he died. In the past 20 years, King Uther has done the most to eliminate magic. For this, he has killed countless innocent people. For example, if a wizard is found in an inn, then the entire inn, from the boss to the waiter, to the guests, will be arrested and killed. For another example, if a family is found to be a wizard, then his neighbors on both sides are likely to be arrested, because you have lived with a wizard for such a long time, but you didn't report it, which is to cover up. All in all, under King Uther's iron fist, there are really too many unjust, false and wrong cases. But because magic has indeed caused a lot of disasters, the people can only endure it. King Uther has the upper hands in this regard. But if the secret of Arthur's birth is spread, everything will be different. People don't care what King Uther thought at the beginning. They will only think very simply that when you, King Uther, kill people related to magic, you always kill the wrong ones rather than let them go. But why do you let your son go? Your son was also created by magic. He deserves to die. In this way, King Uther's previous righteousness will be completely shattered. And this is still one aspect. People in this era are not as powerful as in later generations. If King Uther really abandons his integrity and uses a large army to suppress it, the people will have no choice. After all, he is a tyrant. But there is a group of people who are not so easy to deal with, that is the entire aristocracy. The entire aristocracy of Camelot followed Uther and put their heads on their belts to fight against magic. That was because they believed King Uther's words and thought that magic had affected their rule over Camelot. But now, they suddenly discovered that Arthur was born with the help of magic. What do they think? The better ones will only think that Uther is unfair, and the really dark ones will consider what will happen after Arthur comes to power. Because strictly speaking, Arthur should be in the same group with those wizards. When Arthur comes to power, what should he do if he wants to avenge his freak friends? And there is another very important reason, that is power. Once the legitimacy of Arthur's heir is destroyed, he will lose the right to inherit the throne, which is a huge good news for some ambitious people. What's more serious is that this will make many nobles who originally didn't have this idea start to become unstable. In short, this matter has a very big impact, so big that the Pendragon family will lose their rule over Camelot. In this case, it's a ghost that King Uther can agree. Of course, this is not the most important thing. King Uther has been tough all his life. These are all small matters. At most, he will fight another war. This is not a big deal for King Uther. At the beginning, I don't know how many people were unwilling to go to war with the weird and unpredictable wizards and magical creatures, but King Uther still went all the same. This courage is not a big deal for him. What really makes him feel hesitant is Arthur. If Arthur knew the truth of the year, what would he think? How would he view his father? And some things really can't be explored. The more you explore, the more trouble you will get. Once Arthur's secret is exposed, many things that started with this may be dug out by others. For example, these things will involve another person, that is Morgana. Morgana's side is even more difficult. Anyway, King Uther still has an excuse to explain to Arthur about what happened in the past. But what about Morgana? Here is a spoiler of Morgana's life experience. Morgana is King Uther's biological daughter. It has been mentioned in the previous article, but few people know who Morgana's mother is. In short, Morgana's mother was King Uther's lover. Before King Uther and Queen Igraine got married, they had conceived Morgana. And the father Morgana had always thought of was just a scapegoat. This is not the key point. The key point is that Morgana's mother is a witch. And she was killed by King Uther himself. This matter is very tricky. If Morgana knew that Uther killed her mother, who could do magic, and had been hiding the fact that she was her biological father, she would have felt that she was adopted and lived under someone else's roof for many years. Uther did this just to vent his anger and preserve his reputation as a king. Adding these things together, it was reasonable for Morgana to cut King Uther into pieces. And the beginning of all this was Arthur's birth, so King Uther could not and dared not let this matter be exposed, otherwise his family would be destroyed. Chapter 50 Stubborn. In the whole Camelot, besides King Uther, Kai is the one who knows the secrets of the past the most. Whether it is the secret of Arthur's birth or the secret of Morgana, Kai knows everything. To be honest, no matter how close Kai is to King Uther, there are some things he can't help him to excuse. For example, the matter of Morgana's mother. Kai really can't make any excuses for Uther. Even Gaius doesn't know about this matter. But Kai knows that this was told to Kai by King Uther himself, just to let Kai take care of Morgana. Although Kai didn't know why King Uther told such a big secret to himself, who was still a child at the time, Kai has been abiding by the agreement with King Uther for so many years and has taken good care of Morgana. Now think about it, it's probably King Uther compensating Morgana. So Kai is particularly aware of the seriousness of this matter. I know your concerns, but you should trust Arthur. Just like Gaius said, Arthur is no longer a child, he should be able to understand you. As for Morgana, I think it's better to maintain the status quo. After all, only you and I know about what happened back then. As long as the two of us keep it a secret, no one will know the truth of that year, but after so many years of getting along, how could Kai let Morgana and King Uther become enemies because of the old things of the past? Even if King Uther was not right in this matter. King Uther shook his head and said bitterly, "It would be great if it was really that simple, Arthur. I don't know what he would think, but the consequences would definitely not be too good, but even so, I can accept it. But Morgana. Yes, only the two of us know the truth of that incident, but that is meaningless, because more than just the two of us know that Vivian died in my hands. Once this matter is turned over, it will be enough for Morgana to hate me to death." Morgana and King Uther are indeed the biological father and daughter. Only Kai and King Uther know that, but many people know that King Uther killed Morgana's mother Vivian. In the war of hunting down wizards and magic, Vivian's incident was not a trivial matter. Vivian's identity was very special. First of all, she was a high priestess of the ancient religion and a descendant of the tribe of the three-phase goddess. She had extraordinary magical abilities and a very high status in the magic world. She was a high noble in the minds of all the old worshippers. Secondly, her identity on the surface was also very prominent. She was the wife of Gloss, the Duke of Cornwall at the time. The cause of that incident was actually very simple. Vivian could not accept that the old religion and the magic population were slaughtered by King Uther, so she used her identity as the wife of Gloss, the Duke of Cornwall, to constantly pass on intelligence to the outside world, destroying King Uther's war strategy, causing King Uther's army to suffer heavy losses. However, she never expected that these actions of hers would eventually kill her husband, Gloss, the Duke of Cornwall. Gross, the Duke of Cornwall, died in a battle because he failed to get timely support from King Uther due to Vivian's leaking of secrets. It was also because of this that King Uther found out the truth that Vivian was a witch, so King Uther had to kill Vivian. This matter could not be hidden from others at all. At least most of the senior nobles who participated in the war knew something. This is why King Uther felt that after Arthur's life experience was exposed, the matter of Morgana's mother would be uncovered. Kai also understood, but he felt that Arthur's matter did not need to be made public. Perhaps talking to Arthur in private should avoid a series of consequences later. Some things are afraid of being avoided. It is better to lay it out and talk about it, which may be the best solution. Unfortunately, King Uther still stubbornly rejected this suggestion. He wanted to hold this secret into the grave. But the problem is that we are not the only ones who know about this now. Don't forget, Niwe also knows. Since she knows, Can you guarantee that other enemies of Camelot will not know? Secrets known by others are no longer secrets. Kai tried to persuade King Uther from another direction, but King Uther's stubbornness was beyond Kai's imagination. He thought very simply. They are Camelot's enemies, and their accusations are not to be feared at all. He can just say that they are slander. It has been so many years, and no one can produce evidence. Why should he be afraid? At this point, Kai is powerless. Because of the Black Knight incident, Camelot has become very lively in recent days. As the incident fermented, more and more people knew about it and began to praise Kai's strength and Camelot's greatness, and crowned it with the words legendary and great. This can also be regarded as raising the reputation of the kingdom of Camelot from the side. At the same time, this also led to many people coming to Camelot in admiration, hoping to watch the duel where the Black Knight was killed up close. There really aren't many entertainment activities these days. Any little thing can make bored people talk for a long time, not to mention this classic plot of a group of knights defeating demons. So a few days have passed, and the heat of this matter has not only not subsided, but has become more and more popular. Even now, there are dramas with Kay and the Black Knight as the protagonists in the market of Camelot, which are quite popular. Merlin himself likes these dramas very much. Although he knows the truth of the matter, it does not prevent him from appreciating those dramas. After all, dramas are processed and are more interesting than the truth. Today, Merlin sneaked out as usual while Arthur was being scolded to death by Sir Kay and planned to watch the drama Knights against the evil Black Knight again. But when he was halfway there, he suddenly saw a familiar figure looking around in the crowd, as if looking for someone. Mom, the woman who was looking around in the crowd turned her head immediately when she heard Merlin's call, and just met Merlin's sight. Merlin, Miss Eunice hadn't seen her child for half a year. Seeing her son, she couldn't help but feel excited. She rushed to Merlin and hugged him. Merlin was also very excited. After leaving his hometown of Elder, he had thought about going back to Elder to visit his mother. Unfortunately, too many things had happened during this period of time, leaving him no time to ask for leave. Besides, as a servant, he was not qualified to ask for leave at will. So he could only bury his longing for his hometown and mother in his heart. Now his mother came to Camelot by herself. He wanted to take a good look at his mother and see if she was doing well. But when he saw her, something went wrong. He found that his mother had injuries on her face and even her eyes were swollen. It was obvious that she had been beaten. This discovery made Merlin very angry. He immediately asked nervously, "What happened? Who did this?" Eunice's surprise and touch at seeing her son turned into misery and indescribable at this moment. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.